Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show today. Very happy to have you here. Hopefully, you all had yourselves a really good weekend. For me, it's kind of a gray day again. It's not raining though, but it is a bit gray. But we've been having a lot of the Chinese sand and pollution come over to us recently. It's really been quite bad. Something we have to deal with here in Japan when the eastern winds kick up. But anyway, I got myself a little over a half cup of cold coffee. Mm. But nevertheless, we got a
Half
lot to
cup.
talk about today. How are you doing today, there, Thundero?
I am well. You don't have
Mm.
rain.
No,
I do. We got torrential downpours. We got thunderstorm warnings. We got the whole deal. The whole kit and caboodle. April is around the corner,
hmm
which you know what that means in the great Northwest, Chester. Well, I guess I'm North Middle, but you know what I mean.
black flies.
Uh, well, that and rain. Just rain. Sometimes for a week or two at a time.
Right.
Just rain. Just rain. So that's where we're at. Maybe tornadoes if you're lucky. You know, if you're real blessed by Yahweh himself to catch a
Sure.
cyclone, you might get one of those.
Yeah.
We don't usually get those here though. It's pretty rare. Once every 5 or 6 years, we'll get a funnel cloud through here.
So you're outside of the alley, huh?
Oh yeah. The lakes keep them away.
No, that's
The
good.
alleys are they're kind of in a pickle there because you got the lakes and the north winds from the Arctic coming down, pushing all that wind together. Then you got the
hmm
warm winds from the ocean, from the Gulf of America. That's right,
Yeah,
the
Gulf of
Gulf of
America,
America,
America.
pushing up into it and just squeezes that nice little alley, and that's why you get all those tornadoes right there,
That's true.
and tornadoes.
That is true. Natural disasters are a thing. We're going to kind of talk about that today a little bit. But yeah, the whole thing with the Gulf of America, it actually makes more sense, not to be on the Trump train in this regard because the only reason, let me be clear, the only reason he's doing that is because Biden passed a bunch of laws with the damn Democrats to keep people from doing oil because heaven forbid in the Gulf of Mexico. And basically, what Trump has done was, well, it's not called the Gulf of Mexico anymore. Therefore,
Yeah.
it's not legal. It's what he's done. That's why he's done it. Don't misunderstand it. It was just an easy loophole for him to fix one problem. And seeing as he's dealing with precisely, 38,072 problems, so good on him for that. But it does make more sense because we do call this North and Central and South America, or the land of Amaru. I
Mhm,
really hate.
mhm.
I want to slap whoever it was that had the idea. Hey, let's say this little unknown navigator was named two continents after instead of a king or a queen or something.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's not how that works.
no, it's
That's
not
not
how
how
that
any of
works
that
at
works.
all. It's so ridiculous. But they've been calling that Amaru the land of Amaru, which translates, particularly for the northern continent, as the land of the wise serpent, because Amaru is also called Viracocha or Quetzalcoatl. It's the same god,
Yep.
same dude. Yeah. But anyway, it does make more sense, though.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. And it's also, I mean, this is our hemisphere. And if they keep messing around, we're just gonna rename everything after us. Because stop us. Do something about it. Um I really don't see why we would allow it to be still named after a a country that has no business being so fledgling. It should be a fairly powerful world power, yet it's not because of, well, many reasons. But there's no good reason why America shouldn't assert its dominance over this hemisphere
hmm
in totality. Uh, the only reason you could come up with is for the most part everybody plays ball,
Yeah.
and
Well, they
that's
came
fine.
there. They actually became Mexico in September. Oh, I can't remember, September something of 1821.
Yes,
I do recall that from my history class. But
we were here first, even,
well,
even.
America was a country before they were. Uh, but
Yep.
uh, but yeah, they've had their shot at it, and they didn't do nothing with it.
No, no. In all honesty, unironically, the only reason Mexico is so poor, it's not really that poor. It's just so corrupt, is the corruption.
It
People
is.
can blame they can blame whatever they want. You can blame America, which a lot of people do. You can
I
blame
blame
this
the
thing, that thing.
73 average IQ.
Yes, that would be the big problem right there.
Yeah,
The below retard level intelligence quotient
yeah.
is a bit
That's
of a problem.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, it's
So
not
what's
good. It's not what you
Canada's
want.
excuse?
They're
Oh,
lazy.
oh, okay. But it is
You
cold.
see, they got up there,
The weird
they got real cold.
yeah.
They figured out maple syrup. They said, "Wait a minute." And then they
Yeah,
had maple syrup,
they
and
did
that's
do
it.
that.
They were
Yeah.
done. That
You
was
know
the end of their
the funny
contribution.
thing though, cold weather people tend to be the most industrious and successful though.
Except the Canadians.
Yeah, it's weird.
They chilled out.
It's the French mind virus, I think.
Probably, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
They got a tumor up there right on the side of their head, and it's just messing them up. And that's the Quebecois, the
Yeah,
French.
Quebecois. Yeah.
Yeah, it even sounds ugly, like
Well, it
Quebecois.
does. But the French language can be pretty. To be fair, I pick on the Quebecois quite a bit, but it's really the Eastern Bloc. They literally call themselves the Bloc. They're the
Mhm.
real problem. They hate Anglophones. They're just horrible, hateful people. Um,
Yeah,
the Western French in Quebec are far less troublesome.
yeah, yeah. That's usually how it is. They have that one little section, or maybe sometimes it's a big section
Yeah,
that's making everybody else look bad.
yeah, yeah. Like America,
And
we
that's
got
what we're dealing with.
California, New York, Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah,
Detroit. Oh, there's a lot.
there's a lot. Yeah,
Just
it's
say
becoming a
cities.
problem. Pretty much any of the
Yeah,
major cities for the last 70 years have just
yeah,
become hellscapes.
yeah,
Um, but it's interesting watching the Canadians, and all of a sudden they're very patriotic. I was seeing somebody out here was complaining that what Trump has done by being so belligerent to Canada and to Europe has made the left over there, the liberals over
hmm
there stronger, and in Canada stronger as well. And I'm just gonna say, listen, if you hate Trump so much for trying to get better deals for America, because that's all he's really doing.
yeah,
Anybody who wants to think he's doing anything else, that's all he's doing. If you want to pretend you hate that man that much that you're going to vote for more of the same tyranny you've been dealing with for the last 30 years, then you deserve what you get. You get what you
yeah.
fucking deserve.
I
That's
think
what.
those polls are bullshit. Just like our polls
We're gonna
were
find out.
bullshit.
We're
We'll
gonna
find
find
out
out.
because there seems to be a very strong revulsion to what's going on. But
Yep.
we'll see. I mean, it's their country. You know, if they
Let
want
them
to
do what
save it,
they
they're gonna
want.
have to save it themselves. You
But
know,
exactly. That's where I was going. It's not our job to save you from yourselves
no,
anymore. We're
no,
36 trillion, going to be 38 trillion by the end of the year, if not more, in debt as a country. We cannot be your babysitter anymore. It's time for you all to grow the fuck up and get your shit together. We just can't do it anymore. We
mhm,
don't have the money, we don't have the time, nor do we have the inclination. We're
yeah,
done. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna fund the smartest, most industrious man maybe to ever live and get to fucking Mars. And we're gonna plant an American flag right on that son of a bitch
hmm
and claim the whole planet for
again,
ourselves.
again,
Yeah, we're
again.
doing it.
We're doing it.
You guys can
Um,
figure your own stuff out. We don't
we
need
can.
any of you. The only
Um,
country that we kind of need is Taiwan, and that's only for now. We're fixing
uh,
that problem too.
True, but we're also do quite a bit of partnership with the Japanese. Um,
Well, yeah, but they understand. See,
they
they're
do,
with us.
they do.
Japan
Yeah,
loves America, and
they
we love
do.
them back. We
We
buy
do.
all their shit. We buy their anime and their hentai and their
Well, maybe not
manga.
everything. But
But
yeah, no. America's headed in a good direction. We'll see. There's still a lot of work to do. But and I would even argue by the end of the year that I don't know that it'll be 38. I think it'll be actually reduced.
hopefully,
Because this is a huge focus for him is to reduce that deficit.
yep, yep.
But then again, there's so many freaking, spoons in the pot right now. I, you know,
It's a problem.
it's a lot. It's
The
a lot.
corruption runs deep,
That too.
deep.
Yeah, it's
He's also
yeah.
I genuinely believe he's going to take Greenland. He's just Denmark's just going to have to deal, and we're just
Well,
going to
he
have
might
that now.
just simply buy it from them.
Yeah, yeah. Either it'll be financially, we'll just buy it from them like we did a lot of our territory actually, or it'll be they just won't have a choice. I mean, at the end of the day, they really don't. What are they going to do?
right.
That's the
Well,
thing that's the difference between this is why I tell them all the time, "You're lucky you got Trump." Trump's a businessman, he wants to make deals. Mr. Vance, on the other hand, is a Marine.
yeah,
I
no,
think he'd be
he's
fine with
more
just send them
aggressive.
in.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we'll just take it.
We'll
We'll
just
just take
take it.
that.
Um, yeah, no, I have a feeling that those kind of things will get done. But I also think that Trump's a little bit kind of the mindset that, hey, because we've heard him say this actually kind of thing before. Hey, let them hate me. Let them hate me. I'll take it all on my shoulder. Let's get all this done. They can hate me all they want. He's got a bit of that mindset going on right now, if in my opinion. But of course, that's not even really the worst situation geopolitically right now. The worst situation is Zelensky has clearly gone insane.
No, no, he's been told he will play ball or,
Oh no, no, he's not
that
playing ball
that
with
war
anyone now. He's like, I'm not,
no, that war
I'm
will
not doing
continue.
this. No, I'm not.
Well, he knows what'll happen if that war ends. He's dead.
That's probably what
He's
it
dead.
is. But he's,
Simple as that. There's no path to peace for him because peace equals death. The
yeah,
stuff that he's been up to, the stuff that he's facilitated, the deaths of millions of people in that country,
yeah.
the wanton abuse of all human rights in the country. They suspended them all
Oh, and
basically.
there's a lot of war
Um,
crimes coming out of the places that, that the Russians have had to push them out of. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Russians won't do war crimes because we know right well they will. But they've been basically on their own friendly territory, pushing the enemy out. So they haven't really had the opportunity for war crime. But the Ukrainians have, and they've committed a lot of them. Now, will The Hague listen? Probably not. Because they don't
yeah,
care. It's just like all these little Jew girls raped down by Hamas, that the UN's like, well, there's a time for rape. Oh, really?
is there
Okay.
now?
Okay,
Can you
dokie.
make this? Can you make this positive moral argument in the affirmative
Yes,
for this
please.
behavior?
Can you clear
Let's hear
that
it.
up? But the UN is so corrupt, dude. Um, yeah, it's all kind of coming to a head, and I'm here for it. I got my popcorn, dude, and it is buttered and salted, bitch. I'm watching. Because it's boy howdy. But yeah, Zelensky has absolutely lost it. You see that he tried to have Putin assassinated, failed miserably, of course, but tried. You do realize that's another thing that under the Geneva Convention is illegal.
Correct.
You're not allowed to assassinate each other's leadership, which is convenient, I think, as far as the rule goes. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I wonder if anyone's going to bring that up.
No, no, he's going to get thrown under the bus. Russia has won.
He might, yeah.
Period. They won a long time ago. They really won before it even
They've been
started.
sitting for 2 years, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, they've just been chilling. They could have done more, and they basically haven't because they've
No,
done what they needed to do.
they did,
Um,
and the since Trump came into office on January 20th, they've started moving again, and they've taken a lot every day. They're taking more territory. So yeah, they were just waiting for Trump, I think.
he only has himself to blame, Mr. Zelensky. He really does. If he would, this whole situation, and I understand, I kind of understand his perspective. Like I said, like if this ends, if peace is struck, he's dead. It's not that he's
Yeah,
not
he's
gonna
in
sail
trouble.
off into the sunset. The people in Ukraine, if unless he can somehow get out and get to somewhere that'll protect him, which who knows where that is,
Yeah,
he's dead. The
yeah.
people of Ukraine are going to kill him. He's going to be tried and executed for his war crimes. 1,000%. It's not even a question. It's not even a question. The only reason he's still in power is because he basically just demanded that he is. He suspended everything and made himself dictator effectively.
For life.
Seems like it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I was going to do this before, but I'll go ahead and do this first then, because your segue was too good. Did you see? A lot of
Uh-oh.
places around the world are kind of get on this. Hey, Trump's doing transparency. I like that. Our people would like that. That's like an easy get. And what do I care
Yeah.
about the past? And O'Mealy's like, hey, Trump, I got something that people might be interested. Did you know that Adolf Hitler lived 20 extra years in Argentina? Confirmed. He's releasing all the data, by the way.
I mean, I didn't know it was a secret at this point.
No, we
We
all
got a
kinda
gazillion.
know it's one of those things, just
Yeah,
like, we
one of
know the
those
Jews
open
are
secrets.
involved with the Epstein situation, we know, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of Jews, why they're really hesitant, but, of course, we've known forever that, the Russians, after the fall of Berlin Wall, they actually let people test the skull of Hitler, and, of course, it's a female, it's probably bronze skull, this lady, it's probably hers.
Mm,
But
yep.
it's not a male; it's a female skull that the Russians have. It's supposed to be his. We know that, and there's a lot of books, and it was one of those things that we all know. Yeah, he escaped to Argentina and died in '65 or something like that. But even though it's still a lot of people throw it up to rumor and stuff like that because it's not hardcore evidence. But now it is. So Mile
Here it
just
is.
like, yeah, take this. Here you go, world. And of
Here you
course,
go,
he
world.
not only, if you go read this article and stuff, not only did he live an additional 20 years, because he was a pretty old dude, right? Anyway, not only did he live an additional 2 years, he managed to sire two more daughters.
Interesting.
Interesting. I mean, good on him for that. I mean, I don't know what kind
It's
of Argentinian women he got, but he got one.
it's fascinating to me that for so long this has been like one of those open secrets for anybody who's, paying attention, because there's literally pictures of them out
Yeah,
there.
there are.
Like
There are.
they
Yeah.
exist. They've existed
Yeah.
forever. It's one of those open secrets, like people talk about
Like the
where
American
all
government
the
tried to kill JFK. Yeah, no shit.
yeah, where the Nazi war criminals went after World War II. And we already know most of them went to Argentina. Like, it's not
Yeah,
there's
and
whole districts down there that are German. What are we talking about?
there are, and of course, people say, "Well, why didn't we go get him?" Well, there's this little thing called Project Paperclip. You see,
Ye
and we made deals. We don't have that hasn't been declassified 100%, but there were deals made to get those German scientists in a bit of a frenzy because they wanted to get him over the Russians getting them, right?
yeah,
So I'd imagine there was some kind of deal in this regard, right? We don't really know that. We don't have that piece of the puzzle. But I'm guessing there's something in there, right? And of
most
course,
likely.
the Russians couldn't do anything about it, nor do I think they gave a shit, because they were really busy acting like they were strong enough to actually be in a Cold War with anybody, let alone the United States of America. So it was, people think that America is only recently a superpower. No, it's
No,
been quite a while.
no.
Yeah.
We just had our coming out party in
Yeah.
at the end of World War II.
Yeah, and but even later than that, I'd say our coming out party was really the '60s.
Think so?
Yeah, as far as, kind of swinging our dicks around, I'd say even the '80s in a way. But then again, at that same time, the Japanese were banging our heads in the auto industry.
Mhm.
But then, of course, by the '90s, they were shipping all our manufacturing overseas. So it was a short-lived coming out party
Yeah. Well, we were betrayed by our elites.
by our own people. Yeah.
Wholesale betrayal by the people from within,
Well,
because of, well, globalism,
well,
you
yeah,
know?
but you got a fair play, right? Because you had the American Banker Consortium that did all the
Mhm,
nonsense back in 1913, right?
mhm,
That
mhm,
was fully an American endeavor, right? And
mhm.
of course, you had the Bilderberg Group, which has been kind of has had power for an incredibly long time. They've had different names over history, but they were even called Illuminati at one time. I mean, legitimately, were called that at one time.
Right.
Right now, they call themselves the Bilderberg Group. And it's just a consortium of bankers. It's not as deep a conspiracy as Hollywood likes to make it be. Of course, the Hollywood version is more interesting.
Far more interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
And demonic.
and demonic. But these guys are
Yeah.
just bankers, right? Very powerful ones. But to be fair, that consortium of American bankers got into infighting with each other. I mean, the whole Titanic thing was there's a fair argument. Because the people who are standing against them doing everything they wanted to do, all of them were on the Titanic and died on it. There's a
Yeah.
fair argument, and we know that there was a fire when it left Ireland. There was a fire in the engine, at the going on. So I mean that's conspiracy theory, but nevertheless, the right people died on that boat conveniently. And they were able to make their run, but they were infighting amongst themselves with the Morgans and the Rockefellers and all those kind of people infighting so much that they weakened themselves. And the Bilderberg
Right.
group was able to sneak in and get in all the right pockets, and they were there already anyway. Keep in mind, before we got into the war, Prescott Bush, yes, those Bushes, was completely in the pocket of the Bilderberg and was selling weapons to both sides of the war. By the way, you know
Yep. That's how they made their money.
it is. So, excuse me. So therefore, the Bilderberg group made their play, and now who's in their pocket? Well, the entirety of the Democratic Party, I would say, but certainly the big boys like Obama, the Clintons, the Bidens. They're all part of it. Even some of the leaders like Abe, who's dead now, but he was part of the Bilderberg group, right?
Yep.
So they've really got their claws, and I'm sure there's some Republicans that have been recruited as well. So fair dinkum, as our down under brethren say, they won. I mean, what do you want? And now
So
we're
far.
getting a pushback, and we'll see if they can hold their power. If they're going to get broken. I kind of hope for the latter.
Me as well.
Yeah,
Me
it
as
is
well. I
so
think
1700s. You're right, but I mean this Rothschild and its various affiliated and friendly banking groups have been doing their thing since the Medici's, dude. I
yes.
mean it's old school stuff. They're still around.
Old hatreds.
Yeah,
Old
yeah,
hatred.
and old
Um,
obsessions. Yeah,
I no, I genuinely think I don't know what the future's going to look like, but unless those particular people, and maybe they have decided to pivot back away from their internationalism,
I don't think
uh,
so.
if they don't, they're done. I think they're going to lose. Well, they might, at least for now. We'll see though. They're the only thing that can really save them at this point is a mass death event. To be honest with you, because
Right.
many
Yeah.
of especially in the West and even in the East, the young men are not buying it. They are
No.
completely not falling for it anymore.
And and
S
it, I know a lot of people on the internet, of course, talk about this subject and from various angles, right?
Yep.
Uh, I'm not I'm not allowing any conspiracy to come into this conversation. I'm just talking about the legitimate, practical aspect of it, right? But
Mhm.
do keep in mind, this is kind of a standard thing I've said before, and I know you guys understand this. It doesn't matter what you believe; they believe it. It's one of
That's
those
right.
situations, and they truly believe that if we can't reduce the human population by drastic numbers, that we're all gonna die. They
Yep.
believe this. This is not some hateful, we're going to rule the world and kill them all. There is some true zealotry going on here, right?
Yes.
And that is, of course, far scarier than just greed, right? But
Yep.
we'll see because they've been dealt some pretty heavy blows here recently. But and of course Elon and his desire, and of course the renewed interest from the Americans to go to Mars and open up Mars. That is the solution. If we can get humanity off the planet, say onto multiple other planets, it ensures our survival, right?
Yes.
Which is the concern of these Illuminati-esque groups, right? So
Yep.
that's a heady conversations right at the beginning. Yeah,
We're there.
but
We're in the thick of it.
we
The
are.
heat.
But there was worse, more immediate. That is interesting that Milei's releasing that. Good on him for that. But of course, this would be the headline news for today.
Mhm.
Kissinger is an absolute monster, dude. But we had an earthquake over here in Asia, if you hadn't noticed.
Yep.
Now, Japanese,
A
we
little
get
bit
them
of
all
one.
the time. But the Japanese know how to build for earthquakes. Matter of fact, it's in the code, which wouldn't matter. The Japanese would build to not die anyway. right?
Yeah.
So we get hit with this level of earthquake or greater all the time. So for us, a seven something earthquake isn't that bad. I've sat through many of them myself, but we build for it. Therefore, our buildings tend not to fall down for us unless they're really old. For us, the concern is not the earthquake; it's the tsunami, right? For
Right.
us in Japan, especially seeing as we're an island surrounded by water, as islands do. But these people over here get them far less frequently. And of course, they don't have the money or the infrastructure to build at a Japanese level,
Hmm.
obviously, right? Or even I'd say California probably has regulation, wouldn't you think?
I'd imagine, yeah.
Probably too much,
I
I'd
mean,
imagine.
who knows how effective it is in California, but
Well,
yeah.
but nevertheless, Burma and Thailand particularly got hit. China, even though you say that seems far away, it is. But China, their buildings are literally made of paper towels.
Yep.
So they fall down quite easily. So they had a bunch of buildings fall down, which is ridiculous. But even as far as way in Taipei, they felt that. So it was a big deal because it was so shallow, right? And that
Yeah.
you tend to kind of have a wider impact. But Thailand has been hit pretty solid, but Burma or Myanmar, which I hate calling it Myanmar, but then again, I don't like Thailand either. I prefer Siam, but whatever. Um, it's been hit really hard. But understand that the junta that says they're in charge of Burma, um, they the only reason why you would think they're actually in charge is because they have access to the cameras, I guess. Because we don't even know how many separate separatist revolutionary groups there are in Burma right now. There's dozens of them all banging against each other. That junta doesn't control shit. Don't believe it for a second. But even though they do control the media, and they actually spoke to the world because Burma is quickly becoming North Korea, as far
I've
as
noticed.
communication with the outside. But they did say help. So, and of course, everyone's going to go in and help, of course. But you could have tens of thousands dead in Burma, dude. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's tragic.
Yeah,
Very
it
truly
is.
tragic.
I think the current count in Thailand's like 1,700, which is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
They did have some significant damage in Thailand, but Burma is wrecked. I've been able to get some information coming out of Burma because of they're communicating, so it's a little bit more open than usual. But yeah, it's bad, dude. And you're talking about we got structures that have been dropped that are like centuries, like 1,000-year-old structures are on the ground, right?
Right.
So. Yeah,
Not
no,
good.
Dave, that's far away, dude. This one had a very
Mm.
wide-reaching fingers. Yes. Yes, that was one of the more brutal Rambos was set in Burma. Actually, the last one, though, dealing with the Mexican cartels, I would say is the most brutal Rambo ever made. And it has nothing to do with the fight scenes. It has to do with what they allowed to happen to his niece or whatever she was. Because
Yeah.
that was mean. Did you watch that movie?
I did, but I got bored of it and turned it off.
It was a bit more drama-esque. He likes that though when he can get away with it. But dude, what they allowed to happen to the girl, which I think it was his niece or something like some kind of relation. Um, that's mean, dude. Mean-spirited. Because in the end, which is pretty common for most every Rambo movie, he doesn't save the day at all. Not really. I mean, sure, he
Right.
killed some bad guys. Who gives a shit? There's literally a million of them waiting to take their place, right? But he didn't save the day at all. But he usually doesn't, does he? I guess that's part of the Rambo thing. He doesn't actually save the day.
No. He's about getting back,
vengeance.
get
Yeah,
even. Yeah. Uh, even in the first movie, right? It's just it's he they that guy that cop pushes him to snap. He
yep.
goes on a bit of a
And he gets
spree.
arrested.
Yep.
Does he
Yep.
actually kill anyone in the first movie? I don't think he does.
Ah,
I mean, he injures some people, but I don't think he actually kills anyone. The cop dies, but that's his own dumbass fault for falling out the damn helicopter.
right.
So I
I
don't
can't
think he
remember.
actually kills anyone in the first movie. He goes to jail for
I
it
can't
though.
even remember.
Yeah. But anyway, that aside, but yes, you're correct. The whatever movie that the one before last was, he was murdering a Burmese. He was doing that. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to mention it because I think the whole world is aware of it. But over here in Asia, of course, it's a real big deal. Trump said he's going to
Yeah.
send over help, and I'm sure he has already. So, which
Most
is normal.
likely, yeah.
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 Real shame though.
Yeah, no. It's tragic,
Yeah.
these things unfortunately do happen, especially in places that are, in earthquake zones. Um, it's wild how often this actually does happen and you don't ever hear about it really
Yeah.
because it's mostly harmless because people have found ways to make it as such. But not this
Sure.
time. This time it was
Yeah,
pretty
this
brutal.
one
I
hit
saw
in a
some of the
place.
videos.
Yeah, that's true. It
Yeah,
doesn't get it a lot. This particular damage here, I think, is in Thailand. There was a building under construction, 30-story building, and of course they hadn't got the walls in yet. So, well, you know, the
down
walls
it
are
goes.
a rather
Oh,
important part of the structural integrity, right?
how
But
would you
down
like to
it
be
went.
that construction company right now?
Yeah, no, that's so well, dude. They had a full. This happened during the middle of the day. They had a full crew working. They're all dead, dude.
Yeah, that not
Yeah,
only does that suck, obviously, that all those people died, but that company's boned,
they
basically,
are.
because
Uh,
now how are they gonna recoup this if the insurance doesn't cover it, if they even had any? It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna
Well,
be
we'll
interesting.
see. We'll see how the Thai government, the Thai king is. I won't say anything negative because I might go to Thailand in the future. But the Thai king is a separate conversation. He's not like his papa. His papa was a loved and great man. He's not. All right. However, the
Mhm.
government is what actually runs Thailand, and they're pretty cool, right? They're doing their best with what they got. But the one thing I can say, if you look at this construction, this is new construction here. But you look at all the rebar. Look at it all. See it?
Mhm.
Now go take a look at the buildings that fell down in China, or any of the buildings that ever fall down in China. Go take a look and see where you if you find any rebar at all. Because
Yep.
that's why their buildings have fallen down. They're saving money. They're skimping on the rebar, and they're just putting up concrete walls with no rebar in it. Right? And a lot of times they'll do a pour and they'll do it so poorly and so inefficiently that when they take the molds off, it's there's holes and spots everywhere. So you know what they do? They go get themselves some cardboard, paper, whatever garbage around, stuff it in the holes, and just put a fascia of plaster on top of it or cement, which cement don't hold up shit, by the way. Keep that in mind. But yeah, that's China. Imagine getting a house. They do a quick pour, don't do any kind of vibrational adjustments or nothing. And you just have holes everywhere. There's no concrete, right? You just got all this spottiness. And they just stuff it with whatever garbage they can and just cement over it so it looks like it's complete. Imagine buying that
Right.
house and no
No,
rebar
thank you.
at all. That's what's
No,
going
thank
on
you,
in
sir.
China. Yeah.
I would not like that house. Thank you very much, sir. No,
None
thank
of
you,
us
sir.
would. Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
so my point being is if you look at this, this is correct. They didn't do this wrong. This is right. The concrete is solid. We don't see spotty holes at all. It's solid concrete. There's lots of rebar. It's just the walls weren't up, dude. And they
Right.
got hit by an earthquake that was literally, I mean, you're talking 6 meter flow, meaning that
Yep.
it's shifting side to side 6 meters.
Yep.
That's 20 some odd feet, dude. That's a lot. You see some of the videos, entire rooms are just moving, gone. Move all the way across the room. The entire room just moves. It's
That's
yeah.
mental.
I've never been in one with that kind of lateral movement personally. I think the worst when I was in, I don't know if my feet left the floor, but I do know that I was standing here in this. I guess I call this my den. But I was standing in the den. All the dishes were flying out everywhere. They were completely destroyed. We had to repurchase everything. Everything. The whole room's just popping, jumping, right? And I was sitting there telling my wife to stop dilly dallying and pick up the dog and let's go. But she's, oh, wait a minute, back and forth, of course. Um, but whilst I'm sitting there, my water cup, which was full of water, by the way, and nice, floated
Yeah,
up to, chest level, and I grabbed it. Yeah.
nice.
So no spillage there. But the simple fact that it just kind of floated up, of course, I'm assuming the adrenaline was making everything slow down, but um, yeah, it just kind of floated up into my vision. It was like, oh, okay, I'll take that. It's a
Yeah,
weird sensation, but I've been through a lot of
snatched,
earthquakes.
snatched. It's weird how even in like how often weird things like that happen in
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
and most people don't even pay attention to it. Like I've had friendships, relationships, just weird things that
hmm
don't make any sense
yeah,
logically when you think about it that just happen. And you're like, how did that even what? What? That like there's so many it's hard to explain, but I'll give you an example from when I was really young. Uh we were my mother and I were going somewhere. I cannot for the life of me remember where. We were going somewhere and we were late. And all of a sudden we're driving through a town around here called Delta. And in Delta, it's a very small, very, very small town, not very big at all. We drive into well, at the time it was. I think it's pretty big now. We drove drive into Delta, and for whatever reason, the light, which is basically the one at the time, is red. And we
hmm
stop at the red light, and it freezes, and it just stays there, and it just stays there, and it broke. Come to find out, the place we were going had to
hmm
be evacuated because of a fire.
Oh,
Now, had we been in there, we would have been in that mess, or maybe even worse.
oh yeah,
But something, whether it was the Lord above or some other angel, decided to break that light at the right time so we wouldn't be near that fire. When we
that's
got there, we saw
interesting.
the fire trucks, everything. I'm like, what the? What
Yeah.
happened here?
I've never had
Craziness,
that
man.
experience. I've heard of people, but not me. Yeah, no, those things happen. But if you want to freak yourself out on a regular basis, just go get yourself a cardboard box or a piece of plywood or something like that. And take it. Go up to the mirror in your house. You need another person to do this, by the way. Have the
Mm,
for have some the other person put that cardboard box or whatever covering on the mirror and even have them lean in real tight, put their head on it. Lean in 100% behind that, so there's no way the mirror can catch their reflection. And then you go and stand on the side and take a look in the mirror and realize that you can see everything behind that cardboard. Explain
mhm,
that shit.
mhm. Because the light, according to science, because the light bends.
Uh huh. It's the
Uh huh.
freakiest thing, dude. I'm telling you. Get your significant other. It's gonna freak you the hell out of you, dude.
Yeah, it's creepy. It is creepy.
It is.
There is just weird stuff like that that just
Yeah.
randomly happens, and you don't. You understand why people believe in concepts like fate or guardian
Yeah.
angels or just
Sure.
weird things. Uh,
There are real
I,
places that don't have gravity on
yeah,
Earth. It's real.
there's an interesting thing. Another one that happened when I was young. I was probably I don't know 18, 19, and my parents had a nice pool in the backyard. And they were having this big situation with a whole bunch of the family was over, and my niece, my not my niece, my cousin was she was very young, much younger than me,
Mhm.
and this pool had two sections. It had a shallow end and a deep end, right? Like a lot of pools do. Shallow end was 3.5 feet deep. The deep end was like 8 feet deep, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, she's in the shallow end, but she's really short, and all of a sudden she just disappears under the water, right? And I see her from the deep end, and I'm like, where'd she go? And I go walking, or I swim over there and then walk over there, and I just see her, and she's just looking up at me and nobody else even noticed her. I don't know what happened, but for some reason she was just stuck at the bottom. So I just reached down and pulled her up. I said, "What are you doing down there?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. I just couldn't get up.
Wow.
No idea."
Yeah.
No idea.
No, shit like that happened, dude. And of course, one of the problems is it's growing in popularity. It's becoming more and more the mainstream. But plasma physics is the new cool kid on the block, right? And
Yep.
with plasma physics, that doesn't take the nuclear model of anything, like including gravity, into account. Of course, gravity isn't a real word anyway. It's just a placeholder word. Understand it's the theory of gravity. Don't get it twisted.
Mm,
But
mhm.
with plasma physics, of course, it's saying that, well, everything is electromagnetic, positive, negative forces, etc., etc. Therefore, what you just talked about, what I talked about with places that don't have gravity, it's all electromagnetic. Is what's going on, because it seems what keeps you on the planet isn't the quick spinning, go figure. It's the actual polarity of you and the planet itself, which could be connected to the spinning, I suppose. Right? I mean, dynamos are dynamos, right? Uh,
Yep.
but um, but yeah, it is. There's a lot of really cool stuff like that, and of course, a lot of that falls under conspiracy theory. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's see what the chat has to say, shall we? Roger is
What does the chat have to say?
he's remarking to you in the fact that, so just become a total ass to the world. That kind of seems the path that they're going. Yeah, pretty much. Don't want to tell you, the world is kind of an ass to us. So I don't know. Tit for tat, I guess, Roger. I mean, I guess. Well, we got to remember, Roger's a utopian, though. Fair enough, Roger. I want to live in that world with you, buddy. I do. Alan says, I know what Trump is doing with Canada now. He's dropping its market value to buy it at a discounted price, a cheaper price. You figured that out, did you? Um, Sheik says, don't forget about your 51st date. We shan't, Mr. Sheik. Let's see. Another empanada mein Führer. Yeah, that's true, Alan. Yeah. I do like the Mexican food, to be fair. Although most of the food we eat isn't actually Mexican, it's more Tex Mex. But, I've been told that if you say anything positive about Mr. Trump and heaven forbid voted for him, you're not allowed to eat Mexican food anymore, though. I was
I'm
told
fine
that.
with that.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I like that. And screw them. They can't tell me what I can eat anyway. Um, let's see, Brazil. I did not see that coming. Brazil. I did not see that coming. Yeah, that was a good movie. Or interesting. Terry Gilliam. I like Terry Gilliam. Illuminati is so 78. We said that. Consider already said that. Why did you let Lizzo tour out there? Fair enough. Apologize. Carter was kind of an outsider. That's why he was one term. Possibly, I don't know where that came out of, but okay. As far away as Taipei, yep, I read that. Burma is where, yep, did that. And Rambo has a Batman no kill rule in the first one. Well, that's more of a drama and action movie anyway. I'm going to talk about a movie here in a minute. When I get to it, I watch this weekend. We'll wait though. Similar-ish. And of course, Alan says, not going to financially recover from this. That's fair enough. I think he said, I'm never going to financially recover from this, I think is what he said. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, quite the statement, seeing as a girl just lost her arm, and she totally understood it. She's like, "Ah, it was my bad," and she never blamed him for that. Good on for her, I guess. Right? Good on her for that, because I guess it was her screw up. But to lose an arm's a bit, you know, and lose it to an animal which ate it. That's a bit rough. Don't you think? I don't want a
Yes.
piece of me eaten. Do you?
Eaton is not a word, Jester.
I'm the person that's the English teacher here. Thank you very much.
Are you sure?
I have. I was using
Eaton.
intonation and enunciation
Well,
to make my
in
point.
fairness, Aton's not a word in English. I'm
It's
sure
true.
in some language it's a word out there. Uh,
Mhm.
but yes, no, I do not want to be devoured.
No,
Any pieces of me,
no.
preferably.
Yeah.
My did I tell you about my finger? How I sliced the living hell out of it?
You did.
Yeah. So this finger, I now have a permanent little valley in it. That is how it is healed, and that is how it'll probably stay forever.
Oh, it's a great war story. You could tell
Yeah.
people in the future. You'll come up with some story that's far
Some
from the truth.
grand story,
Yeah, yeah.
far more interesting than I cut it on a trailer.
Right, right. It's always that way. Sure.
Mhm.
I have one wound on my chest, my upper chest, and it's uh, you know I don't elaborate. Sometimes not elaborating is the best way, but because technically it is a bullet wound, it is, but it's not a cool bullet wound.
Yeah.
It's messing around with your friends trying to shoot squirrels, and some idiot who doesn't know how to use a gun was holding it the wrong way, kind of looking at the thing, and it goes off and hits me in the chest. It's one of those. That's the truth, right? Which still 22 caliber to where it's above my heart, so it's no big deal. But yeah, that right below the clavicle, right? That's not cool. Had to dig that sucker out. But nevertheless, if people see it and they're like, "Is that a bullet wound?" I just say, "Yeah." Let their imagination do the walking, baby.
Yeah.
But we all do that kind of shit. Uh, I only think I have like two or three actually cool scars. Most of them are all just idiocy or accidents or wrong place, wrong time type of shit, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, I have, let's see, the scar on my arm, I dropped an air conditioner on it.
Yeah,
I have one on that same arm, my left arm, that a dog gave me when I was a young man. They were, you know how dogs
sure.
jumping, and caught me right in the crux of my elbow on my
Oh,
left arm.
yeah,
So now I have a permanent line of a scar there. Split it open nice and wide. Um, Let's see, other scars. What else do we got? I've got a couple on really small ones on my face from various things. My one finger, my right hand index finger.
hmm.
There's a scar on that from when I was whittling one time,
Oh yeah,
and the knife got caught on the wood, and
yep,
then it
yep,
got caught on my finger, and
yeah.
then
We
into the
all got
bone,
that kind of shit.
and that
Yeah.
hurt like
Oh
a
yeah,
motherfucker.
yeah.
And then various ones all over on my feet, my legs, from different
Right.
things. You know, being a country boy. But
Sure.
yeah, I don't have any like. Well, no, that's not true. I have one on the side of my stomach. It's really small now, though, from where I got shot. But it was just a very small caliber
Yeah,
round.
same with me,
Uh,
man. It shit happens.
yeah.
Pellet guns. Pellet gun will leave a wound, dude. Um,
Oh yeah.
22s, they're probably not going to kill you, but they'll leave a wound. Like I said, mine was complete just stupidity. There's nothing cool at all about it. When it wasn't my stupidity, I don't know, I was there. But anyway, but yeah, there's a few though. I do have a few that are cool. I got some scar of my eye and a couple things on my hand from just being a bouncer, right? Um, I have, I think I got my one I got in the car accident, and of course I got cut real bad in that bar. But actually my favorite scar, or I should say scars, are on my left thigh, on the left side of my thigh, and there's three of them, and they go all the way down. And it looks like a predator or Wolverine had at me. But those are the coolest one for me because I was carrying, those big old propane tanks, the tall ones.
Yep.
I was carrying that. I was down at it was a summer dig when I was at university, archaeology dig, right? And of
Yeah.
course, being a college kid with your professor, you're just a grunt. That's all you are. Occasionally, you get to do some cool stuff like dust off old stuff and label it. That's about as cool as it's going to get. But mainly, you're a grunt, especially if you're 6'3" and over 200 pounds like me. You carry shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I put this. This is down on a river. We have to go all the way up this. Well, I wouldn't call it. It's between a mountain and a hill to get to the base camp, which is up top. And they had the propane tank down there. Hold on a second. And I took to put the propane tank on my shoulder and walking up the hill. It's not that heavy, really, right?
Mhm.
But walking up the hill, and I lost my footing. And as I'm rolling down the hill, this stupid propane tank kept bouncing off of me in perfect gravity sync with me, right? As I'm going down the hill, I keep trying to push this damn thing off of me, and it keeps going down into the river, which I angrily went and dug it out of there, by the way. But I stopped because I got rolled up in a barbed wire fence. Yeah. And me and my attitude, I was angry. I got myself out of the fence. I went down, got the stupid tanker, put it on my shoulder, walked all the way back up, being stubborn. Put it down, and some really cute girl cleaned and stitched my wounds. Oh,
Aw.
yeah.
Aw.
Oh, but that's my favorite scar. Those are my favorites because that's a true story. It's kind of cool. No, maybe not.
That's pretty cool. I
Yeah, I
mean,
think
it's
it's
pretty
cool.
cool,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. As far as a true story, because most of our scars we exaggerate them, don't we?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Alan lost his finger in the war in Cybertron. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But anyway, back to it. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the world, of course, and we're going to talk about a little bit more of it. But this Myanmar thing, of course, is unfortunate. But those things happen. I remember, what was it, 20 years ago or nearly? We had the big earthquake in the Indian Ocean, and of course that ensuing tsunami killed, in Burma, Bangladesh, Thailand, right? Killed what, 200,000 people? I mean,
Yep.
geez, that's the worst natural disaster in my lifetime. And of course, Tohoku here in Japan killed 20,000 because America
Yeah.
hasn't had a big hit like that. Yeah.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, no, it doesn't. Well, we don't really get, I mean, unless like, the caldera blows,
Oh,
uh,
that'll be bad. Yeah.
well, that'd be the end of the hemisphere basically. But uh we don't really get things that are too crazy. The biggest in size thing that we get is the wildfires, but that's just because California is retarded and refuses to do forestation.
Yeah, and
Uh,
especially they got so close to getting it done too, dude, there in the 80s, early 90s.
yep.
It's a
But I mean,
shame.
we get the tornadoes every year. We'll get hurricanes here or there, but by and large, we are ready for
Yeah.
these things. Technology gets better and better every year for the tornadoes to the point where they're less and less of a problem. Usually, the only
Yeah.
people who get got in them now are like really old or really sick and can't move.
Yeah.
So luckily, we're able to get out in front of a lot of that stuff. But it's it's largely just because there's just not a lot of terrible stuff that happens here, as
No.
far as like
Yeah.
environmental hazards. Especially where I'm at, we'll get a blizzard. Like I said, it's occasionally we'll get a tornado, but it's pretty rare. I can't even remember the last time I saw a funnel cloud, probably 10 years ago at least.
Wow.
And that's just a cloud, not even an actual touchdown.
Right.
Um, so I do remember one year though when I was young, there's a school around here named after Anthony Wayne, and the tornado ripped right through the middle of the school, cut it right in half, right down the hallway, everything. It looked pretty cool actually. But yeah, other than that, we don't usually get. There weren't anybody. There was nobody in the school, mind you. It's not like there was children in there. It was empty. But we
Yeah.
don't usually get hit with that kind of stuff here. And most of America's that way. Most of America's pretty chill and temperate weather-wise. It
Yeah,
just gets
no.
cold fall.
We just don't get hit with those kind of numbers. I mean, 200,000 people is unfathomable. It's like, goodness gracious, that's
It's
an
most
instant.
American cities
Yeah.
gone.
And even here in Japan, because Japan's a very modern country, right?
Yep.
But losing 20,000 people in an instant, that's a big deal, dude.
It's rough.
It's a big deal.
Very
Yeah.
rough.
And I think Burma's looking at similar numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Sucks.
It does. We won't know for quite a while if we ever know because that country is. It's in a there's a full-blown civil war. And keep in mind the junta that is, technically that's the world concerns in charge. During the earthquake, they saw an opportunity, so they started bombing. Wonderful people,
Yep.
wonderful people. Yeah. But no one gives a shit about Burma though. No one cares. Let them kill each other, I
Which is
guess.
which is a shame. But
And we seem to care about other things for some reason.
you make your bed, you lie in it, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. It's very strange to me what the world cares about and what it doesn't. Africa's constantly blowing itself up, eating each other, all sorts, just the
Yeah, but
worst
no one
things
cares
you can
about black
imagine.
people, dude.
And no one cares at all about that, but Ukraine is an international emergency where we all must care so much at all
Right.
times and
And
spend
spend ridiculous amounts of money
billions
on.
and billions of
Yeah,
dollars on something that largely for most of us doesn't fucking matter.
right.
Like, think about it for a second. Let's say Russia takes over Ukraine. Okay. You think they're just going to stop exporting wheat? No. Why
No,
would they do
and
that?
they haven't, and they haven't.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no. Unfortunately, with the African thing, the world doesn't care about black people. They like to act like it, virtue signal it, but in reality, no one cares about black people. That's just a
Right.
sad reality. It is what it
Yeah.
is, right? You
Yep.
could have conversations for months and months on end if you'd like to, but it's just the reality. No one cares, right? And the whole Ukraine thing. The good thing with that though is because Zelensky is just saying all the wrong things. I think the American people would be absolutely fine with Trump just like, okay, just shut it all off. We're not going to help you
Yeah.
whatsoever. You go do your thing. I think right now the American people would be fine with it, especially with Zelensky. He's just lost his damn mind, dude. It's like, all right, dude, go at it then. Have
No, I
at it.
don't think the rest of the world understands how fucking done with their shit we are.
Yeah,
We have been coddling you for 80 years. We're done.
yeah,
Get your own shit together or shut up or pay up. These
yeah,
are your options. Pay us some more money, shut up, or fix it yourself for
yeah.
once.
Well, dude, that
That's
Monroe
it.
that Monroe doctrine has come back to roost, baby. Oh
Oh,
goodness. The American people really feel that way in general. They really do.
yeah.
Even though, there's still some disagreements on some political things, that one seems to be quite universal. Like, no, we don't need to be paying for your shit. No,
Nope.
no, no,
Nope.
thank you.
We're done. We're done. We can't be daddy daycare anymore. It's time to grow up now.
Yeah.
It's not our fault that we're the only country to ever successfully do anything of any importance in the last 75 years. I'm sorry. That's not our fault. You suck. Get better. What do you
Reagan
want from
should
me?
have shut that shit down, dude. Is when
He
they
should
should have
have,
shut that
but
down
he
in the
didn't.
80s. Yeah, they should have
So
done that.
hopefully Trump and Elon can.
Well, they
We got to
are. I
stop.
think it's a done deal, right?
We just got to stop. We can't.
Yeah.
The rest of the world's gonna have to get up off its ass and get solve their own problems. Like what you were just talking about, all these tragedies that are happening, and they are tragic. And I do want
They are.
America to help where we can because that's what
Oh, of
we
course.
should
This
do.
kind
The
of
right
thing,
thing
of
to do.
course we're going to help. Of course.
However, here's what happens: is then they now expect it, and I'm like, no,
Well,
no, no, no. This is a tragedy. We're gonna help you in the tragedy. That's it. The rest of the shit that you do to yourself, that's on you.
yeah, but
That isn't our problem.
no, you're right. But in this case, America does have some of, if not the best emergency response teams on earth.
Correct.
That's a
And I have no
real
problem
thing.
with that.
We do have that.
Every
Yeah.
whenever like you were talking about the 200,000 dead, guess who was the first people to show up? The
Oh,
US
we
Navy.
were for sure. Yeah.
Uh,
Um.
that this happens every time, and I have no problem with that. I have no
Yeah.
problem with us being the emergency contact when tragedy like that strikes.
Sure.
The problem is the ingratitude the rest of the world shows. The American
Well,
people have been funding
Southeast
these things
Asians aren't that
for
rude,
so
actually.
long. Well, it's not well, you say that, but then you ask them about Americans, and a lot of them have nothing nice to say. Trust me, I've talked to them.
Well, that's kind of true.
I have no desire to keep saving people who have no gratitude. And we've been doing it for 100 years or so, if not longer. Most of the major charities of the world were founded by American Christians. That's just a fact.
Oh yeah.
Just a fact. The American conservatives fought all the world wars. That's who did it against the other people. American conservatives fund most of the charities. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the ingratitude from the rest of the world, and I think most Americans agree with me. We're
Well,
out here. We have no problem helping you. We're going to do it even if you're ungrateful pricks. But can we get a thank you? Would that be too
yeah.
much?
Well, the Europeans are kind of funny in that regard, even covering what you just said, because we did come in at the tail end of World War One, and we were helpful to a point.
Yep.
But then the Europeans say, "Well, you didn't come into 1918 as a negative, right? Why did you take so
Right.
long?" The same thing with World War Two. You guys came in late, right? So even when we do come in World War Two, we were much more helpful than World War One, right? As far as ending
Yes.
that. But because if Americans weren't there, the Russians wouldn't have been able to do what they did, right?
Yeah.
So, but they even then they just complain about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's disgusting to me.
it can
It's
be. Yeah,
disgusting to many Americans. We've watched our wealth of our nation, our birthright, get squandered on a bunch of ungrateful brats. And then they have the audacity to condescend to us and call us ignorant. How about go fuck yourself? How about that?
yeah,
How about next time some dickhead in Germany decides they want to take over the world, we just sit it out.
yep,
All right, cool,
cool.
cool. Have at it. Figure
Yeah.
it out. Figure it out on your
Well,
own.
and what's really interesting to me is how quickly Americans became indifferent to Canada.
Yeah. Well, I think there's always been a little bit of indifference. It's kind of like this, when you got like a cousin or a sibling that's kind of annoying,
Yeah, yeah,
right? They're,
I
they're
have
either
too.
fake
Yeah,
or they're just full of shit or they're ungrateful or whatever. I'm not saying Canada is necessarily any of those things, but this is the analogy. You just kind of something will happen and you're just like, all right, and you're fine with never talking to them again, right? It's okay, fine.
yeah,
That's how it is. That's how it is. And I think that's where I think Americans are just fucking done. We're done. We're done with the rest of the world and their ingratitude. That's really what it is. Remember when Vance was in there grilling Zelensky, telling him to say thank you, and he wouldn't? That JD Vance represents more Americans than anybody wants to admit in that moment. Even the people
yep,
who say, "Well, I didn't really like the," yeah, okay. But if you're sitting across from somebody whose life you have quite literally saved with the funding and the whatnot and the weapons, um, and they refuse to just say thank you. That's all he asked for
yeah.
was a
But
thank you.
one thing I would take from that interaction they had. This is a guess. I don't know this is true, but I feel so.
Mhm.
There was angst and argument going on before they sat down.
Oh, absolutely,
I think
absolutely.
something was going on in the back
I'm
room when
telling you,
he first showed up. Yeah,
Vance might be the one we've been looking for. He might be the Caesar
he is
because
rolling,
the
dude.
man,
He is
when
rolling.
he just doesn't care. You can't henpeck him. Doesn't work. He has no problem cozying up to the military. They love him. He's a former
Well, he
Marine.
is a Marine. Yeah.
Um, he's from a poor situation, which Caesar necessarily wasn't, but he's from a poor situation. He's as Americana as you can get. Every problem that Middle America has had for the last 30 years, he lived through. He experienced it directly. So the
Yeah,
common
especially come from
American
Ohio. Yeah.
coming from rural Ohio that's infested with opioids. Uh, the common American understands his exact his struggle, as Hitler would say. He understands. We understand this.
Hmm.
So when we see a country that we've spent billions on, probably even more than we know on, and the leader of that
I'm
country
sure.
has even a whiff of disrespect or
Oh,
condescension,
he just
no,
keeps at it. He's worse and
no,
worse
no,
every
no.
day. Yeah.
Mm-mm. He's lucky Vance didn't stand up and beat the shit out of him. To be honest with you, because I'm telling you right now, he was much more calm than I would have been. Much more calm. I don't care if I'm in the White House. It's the fact that you're in my White House and want to talk down to America like that. No. Mm-mm.
Well, that's why
Mm-mm.
he's a effective diplomat, and you're not.
Yes, this is why we send guys like JD Vance and not
Yeah.
me, because
Yeah.
it would be a whole nother level.
Well,
We get old school in there, Chester.
yeah, no, no, I would be horrible in that job. I would bring a gun to every negotiation. Um, but sometimes you want that hammer though. I'd be good for
Yes.
that. But one thing I do find is interesting. Of course, Trump has been going on his thing, America first. Okay, fine. He is
Yep.
a nationalist. He doesn't shun from it whatsoever. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. You could be, a matter of fact, I kind of wish the world was more nationalistic.
Better
It
for
would be
everybody.
better for everybody. But
Yep.
one thing I've noticed that seems to be creeping in is America going to become isolationist, though?
Yeah. We could.
Yeah, it's leaning, isn't it? I didn't expect that. I didn't think it would go that
Well,
way because Trump isn't
here's
that.
no, Trump's not that. I don't think it will. I think it's gonna what's gonna happen is what I've been saying. We're gonna become a hemispherical mega power. We're gonna just completely dominate this hemisphere, north and south, like we already do, but in an even more direct way.
Yeah.
And all these countries are gonna effectively become our direct vassal states. They already are indirectly because they don't have a choice financially, but I just really don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that. And then what we can do is we can lock down this hemisphere. If we can bring chip production here, there's literally nothing we can that the rest of the world can give us we don't have in abundance. America is the
Yeah.
only country on earth that can go completely on its own and it would be fine. It'd be fine.
Yeah,
The
we're
rest of the
we're a
world would be
bit
screwed.
lacking in certain rare earths, but other than that, and we're there's some interesting deals going on because like El Salvador was a train wreck, right?
Yeah.
But now, not only his solution to fix his gang problem, it might turn out to be an absolute killer windfall for that country, dude. They could
Yeah.
become the prison, the international prison of the world, and become quite wealthy off of it.
Yeah. Well, he's already quite wealthy off of Bitcoin because he bought in early for his country, which was smart. Um, and I just don't see any like El Salvador is a perfect example. Are they
Yeah.
officially a satellite state of America? No. Are they obviously a satellite state of America? Yes. Like even that deal you're talking about, that doesn't we don't send your prisoners, well, your air quotes prisoners to another country unless they're willing to play ball, right?
Right,
Um,
of course.
and
Yeah.
that's what's happening, and I think it's going to continue to happen. America is not going to go away unless as long as we stay on the straight and narrow and we don't let radical left bullshit get control again. uh I really don't see any reason why America wouldn't become the empire that it's been this whole time, but more directly so,
Yeah.
because that's what happens. Republics last for about 250 years, conveniently, and then they shift into just being full empires, because if they survive that long they usually have enough power that they don't really have a choice.
Mhm.
You kind of once you accumulate that much power, like Switzerland does the right thing. The reason Switzerland can stay a republic is because it's nice and small. It's small, it's insular, it's
Yeah, and they're
mostly
also the
homogenous.
world banker. There's a lot of
They're
reasons.
also
Switzerland's a
super rich.
unique
Da 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 da
conversation.
da da. But the
Yeah.
reason why they can stay that way for so long is because they haven't tried to expand. They don't
Yeah,
need to.
but keep
They
in
have
mind,
their
even the Caesars didn't fuck with Switzerland, dude.
exactly. They don't need to. America, on the other hand, expanded. We expanded our influence, we expanded our power, we grew our military, we became a world superpower. You can't stay a republic like that. And all throughout world history, whenever a country does what America's been doing, they eventually become a full on empire. America already is a full on empire. We just all pretend that it's not.
Yeah.
Trump's the first president in a very long time to be like, well, I mean, we can call it what we want, but we need territory because that's
Yeah.
what empires do. And that's what's happening. Uh, yeah, I mean, we got Panama. We apparently have Gaza for some reason.
I
We
think yeah, good.
have,
We take I say we take Yemen.
we could take
Or at
Yemen.
least
Why
the
not?
western part of it. Yeah.
My point is,
Where all the terrorists
that's
are.
what empires do, is they gobble up territory. They create vassal states, they create satellite states, client states as the Romans would have called it. They create all these things, and they do so because they don't have a choice. Empire, like I said, empires are either growing or they're dying. There's no middle ground. There's no real stagnation. And that's where we're at now. So I genuinely think America will become much more isolationist insofar as we're going to leave that hemisphere alone for the
Yeah.
most part. We'll still do business,
Yeah.
but we're going to leave them alone and we're going to bring everything over here. There's absolutely no reason we can't do what we did to China to Latin America.
Well,
There's no reason at all.
yeah, and I do like the Yahoo in charge down there in El Salvador. I love his little video when he received those 230 some, gang members. He went full cinematic Hollywood on with that, didn't he? He went John
Oh,
Wick with
he's
it. It was
great at
great.
propaganda.
Yeah, it was
He's great
great.
at propaganda.
Um,
No, Bukele's awesome. He's the best world leader going right now.
yeah,
He saved that country.
eh,
It's not even debatable. He saved that country.
he did, and of course Milei, in Argentina the past year,
Yep.
he did what everyone said. Ah, you can't do it. You can't do it. Can't do it. He did it.
He
He
said,
did it.
watch
They're
me.
Yeah, and they're making money for the first time in their history. He's turned it right around, dude. And of course,
Yep.
he loves him some Trump.
It's crazy how fast you can turn it around,
Yeah, a
right?
year.
Because it's you watch these slow declines or these stagnations or this just these countries just slowly die, and nobody everybody's like, oh, this is just the way it is, and we can't. What are we gonna do? Blah blah blah. And then somebody gets here, we could just do other things, right?
Yeah,
We don't have to keep doing this. We can just
yeah.
do other things. And like, wait, really? Yes, we could just try, see what happens. What's the worst that's gonna happen? It's already pretty shitty. What's the worst that's gonna happen?
Mhm.
And guess what? You do other things, and it just kind of works. Like Bukele when used, I'm pretty sure he made Bitcoin their reserve currency, their actual currency, um, which is super smart because that's the way the world's going. And he did this years ago when he first got
Yeah,
elected. And of course, people were mocking him. Oh, look at the price of Bitcoin now. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, now look at it. Now look at it.
yeah.
Now look at it. Now he's quadrupled or sextupled his nation's wealth just because of that one decision, and he didn't have to do anything. He just sat there and waited, uh,
If
which
they
was very
blow it
smart.
up and become real wealthy, which could be possible, they might start absorbing the countries around them as well.
They should.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, I've been saying this for a while. I don't see any reason why the Salvadorans or whatever they're called don't just give him a crown and be like, "All right, you take care of this for the next 30 years. We got our
Well, they got to be
we're gonna
pleased.
put our faith in you."
They
How
got
could
to
you
be
not be?
pleased.
How
Yeah,
could you not be? The murder rate went from 91% or whatever it was down to like 4%, I think is what their number is.
yeah.
An outrageous shift in four
Well, they
years.
were
And
stealing
and
bodies out of graves. I mean, all kind of
yeah,
crazy shit was going on down there, dude.
wicked
Um,
shit. And
yeah,
look at it now. Look
yeah,
at it now.
yeah. Good for him.
Yeah.
But you know what I want to see, and I know a lot of people here don't agree with this, and many Americans don't agree. But I really want to see a strong, strong partnership with Russia grow. I
Yep.
really do because
I don't see any reason why
I
not.
understand Russia better than the average American because the average American doesn't care to look into it, and I get
Mhm.
why. I'm a freaking Cold War kid, right? But
Right.
dude, we are so similar to them. There's no other group of people on earth that Americans are more in a kinship with than Russians. None. Do you think Americans are like the French or the fucking Germans or the English? I mean, the
No,
English don't even shake hands.
that's weird.
They don't, right? Of course, Russians are like us. They're super friendly. We're so similar, dude, in so many ways. We're the same
Yep.
kind of fun loving people. We're very similar.
Yep.
The Europeans are not like us. We might come from there, but they're nothing like us. They're not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're certainly not like any of the Arabs or the Hindis or anybody else. We're just not. We're not even like the Mexicans. We're unique, us in Canada, aside from Russia. These groups of people, and the Canadians aren't really like us 100% either. But we should have a close relationship with Russia, and I hope we can find our way there eventually. I mean, obviously, we have to take it baby steps. I get it, and we should. We don't be stupid, right? But we should be making money together and be happy together. We should. It would be a good thing, dude.
Yeah.
It would be. Anyway, let me move on here. But I hope they're able to get things going as quickly as possible over there. But it is what it is. I saw this in the chat. Now, of course, this is our Snow White. Here is another non European Snow White who's actually much whiter. Get a hold of that. She's much
Yeah.
whiter than our Snow White. This is a Thai version, and her singing I think is actually better. I went and checked it out.
Interesting.
And but this was
Interesting.
put up by Adrian in our Discord. But it's kind of a funny point. I mean, here is a Thai girl, pretty Thai girl, who is looks more Snow White. She's doing the dubbing for
Beautiful
their
forehead,
version,
though.
right? She looks
Yeah.
more Snow White than our Rachel Zegler, and she's still not a European girl, but it's better.
Yeah. Much better. Much, much better.
Yeah, that's all I had to say. I just saw Adrian put it up, and I thought it was interesting. I went and checked her vocals. She's a pretty good singer, this girl. But Yeah, she's way prettier and way whiter actually. But yeah, and of course, do keep in mind this silly girl is suing Disney now. Did you hear that?
Wait, why?
Because they're done with her, I guess, and they simply canceled all the other projects they had with her, and kind of just she's no longer working with Disney, so she's suing them for contract violation, I guess.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Well,
Ah, these
this
people.
girl's a crazy ass bitch anyway. She won't shut up. She's still not shutting up. It's everybody else's fault. We're all a bunch of racists. I didn't know if you know that. You should probably write that down. You are a racist, Thundero.
Yeah, I mean, I've made my peace with it.
Yeah, fine.
Um, According
Fine.
to these people, anybody who doesn't hate their heritage is a racist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, but this little thing came out, and it was absolutely brilliant here from Jonah Platt, who's the son of a producer of Snow White. Some crazy leftist said, "Your dad flew to New York City and reprimanded a young actress." I didn't think you were supposed to use that word, actress. Any words on this? Because that's creepy as hell and uncalled for. People have the right for free speech. No, shame on your father. Go ahead and read the Jonah Platt's response, dude. It's freaking
Mr.
brilliant.
Platt, you really want to do this? Yeah, my dad, the producer of I think he meant of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie for which she signed a multi-million dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for. I'm begging you for a comma. This is called adult responsibility and accountability. And her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions. Well, I disagree. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all the colleagues and crew and blue collar workers who depend on that movie to be successful. Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged. That I fully agree with.
100%. Yeah.
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 No, it's very interesting that they're just, people out here just outright saying it. People with, in the know, because we all know obviously that that's her bullshit plus Gal Gadot's staunch defense of Israel, being a former IDF soldier, uh killed that
Oh,
movie.
she doesn't like that. Yeah, she doesn't
You
like
had it
that.
from both sides, both the left and the right were just like, "Nah, we're good." And they killed it. They killed any chance they had. Not to mention the fact that, she's probably the ugliest Snow White to ever exist.
Well,
She's
she's
nowhere
just not a
near.
pretty girl in and of
Yeah,
herself.
she's just
But
not a very pretty girl, and that's, it is what it is.
it's
More
fine.
power to her.
There's plenty of
But
actresses who aren't pretty, and that's okay. You don't have to be.
yes, but to be Snow White, you kinda do.
Well, to
To
be
play
Snow
that
White, you
character, you
do.
should be.
Yeah.
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 And it's just kind of a shame, man. It's one of those things where Disney keeps shooting themselves in the foot with this stuff because they don't rein these people in. Sounds like he actually tried to and
Yeah,
did
he
because she
did.
shut up
He
for the last
failed.
while.
Not really.
Uh,
She's been
well, yeah, true. But
jawing.
regardless, these sorts of people are horrendously poisonous to any and all
They are.
productions you're gonna make.
They are.
I
And
don't know why they didn't just kick her off the thing to begin with and find somebody else to do her stuff because, I mean, it's Snow White. I can assure you there's a million actresses out there who could play this role
oh
as
yeah.
good, if not better than her.
Oh sure. Yeah, even Latino ones. I mean, if that's in your head and you got to have a non-white Snow White, I mean, you could have found a better Latino if that's what it was. But you know something I noticed about her face. First of all, she's got the Hollywood diet, so she needs a hamburger. A lot of these girls need a hamburger. That's one of the things why that Sweeney girl is taken off. So is her name Sweeney?
Yeah, Sydney
The
Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney. The taken off so much is because she's got a little bit of weight to her, right? These skinny bone actresses. But anyway, one thing I've noticed, of course, she's got the walleye thing going on, which is popular right now with Hollywood. But she's also got the icebreaker jaw. Did you notice that?
Yes.
So she's got both. She's like a holdover. She's like the Brie Larson and the new thing, the Taylor Joy thing. So she's got them both. Oof.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas this
yeah,
girl here, once again, Snow White should not be Thai. Let's just be clear. All right. But
yeah,
that's a pretty girl. And I
yeah. At
shouldn't
least I
say
mean,
girl,
yeah,
that's actually a woman. That's a 30 some odd year old woman, but she's pretty lady. And these are just
yes,
promotionals. Of course, she's not in the movie. She's just singing and dubbing the voice of Snow White. Uh, but
yep.
um, but yeah, way prettier.
Y-
Anyway,
Well,
idiots.
it's one of those things too. Like I said it, I think I said it last week. They keep saying nonsense. Remember their argument that they can race swaps don't matter because the race of the character has nothing to do with its character. It's only, of course, only whenever they do it from a white person, typically a redhead.
Yeah, they
Except in
hate
this
them
one,
redheads. I'm going to
they
get some
went out of
coffee.
their
I'll be back in
way.
a minute.
They went out of their way to go find them a non-white actress who is very pale. I'll give her that, but out of the way to go find a non-white actress to play a character whose entire thing is how white she is. She's called Snow White, for crying out loud. This was an intentional thing that they did, and they did so because, of course, they despise white people for various reasons. It's very annoying when they do these things, and then they have the audacity, in fact, the temerity, to turn around and blame the audience for not showing up. I've noticed, though, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this in the chat lately, there's a lot less of that going on. A lot less of this, "Oh, well, it's the audience's fault." A lot less of all that nonsense. And I think the main reason that's happening is because it's simply they can't sustain it, right? Profitability is down so low, they can't possibly sustain it. So I think that's where we're at now, and I think it's going to keep getting worse for these people.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason why it'll get better, why it would get better, unless they turn it around. I guess there have been reports that Disney has been, tightening up the ship when it comes to this stuff, trying to expel, or at least on the surface,
that's true.
expel a lot of this stuff. We will see where that goes. They do have their big I don't know if we're gonna talk about it or not, I don't know if you saw it, their big Avengers that they're playing,
I'm
Doomsday.
holding my
Uh,
horses on that because that looks like the only thing they got working for them is nostalgia. That's it.
yep,
And they've
yep,
thrown
yep, yep,
everything, including the kitchen sink, in that dude. It could be fun, but it's gonna. I think it's gonna be an absolute train wreck, dude.
probably.
That's a
Well,
desperate
especially
move.
considering, we have to deal with, what's his name? I can never remember his name.
Robert
The guy
Downey
who's playing
Jr.
Re no, he's fine. The guy who's playing Reed Richards.
Oh, freaking Pedro Pascal. Yeah, that asshole.
Pedro Pascal. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to deal with old Pedro as Reed Richards. You wanna talk about the worst casting decision, maybe in the
Well,
history of Hollywood.
it's
It's
just
pretty
like
bad.
it's just like Zendaya. He's just white, not white. Just not white. Therefore, he's a token, just like her, and that's why they throw him in everything. But yeah, I and of course we won't even get into the conversation we've already had that they're basically wasting Doctor Doom for their desperate move here to bring everybody back. Come, please, go to give us your money. But yeah, it's ridiculous. And going back to mention that Sweeney girl, not to kind of leave it in the lurch, because that is one of those things, because right now she's getting a lot of heat, and fine, good for her, congratulations. But it is the starvation effect, though, right? Because that Sweeney girl is pretty average looking. I mean, yes, she has larger breasts, but they're sloppy. I mean,
Mhm.
she's not a looker, not a looker. We've had some really amazing lookers throughout the history of Hollywood, but she ain't one of them. But because she's the best you got, she's getting
Yeah.
all that heat. And once again, I ain't take nothing away from her. You go, girl. Although I imagine she's a absolute vapid piece of shit, though. I have a feeling from the few things we've seen on her, she's a typical Hollywood little bitch. But nevertheless, we got a headline here.
We have a headline, ladies and gentlemen, and that headline reads, hang on, my Discord's freaking out. Snow White bombs as Jason Statham's A Working Man. explodes. Ooh, now that's a good headline, Matt. Good job for
Good job, Matt.
Matt.
Good job, Matt.
That's good
Um,
wordplay by Matt. Look
it
at him.
is, yeah. But it's all it's all in accordance though, because this movie, A Working Man, didn't make a lot of money this weekend. It didn't. It's just that Snow White made so little, right? And of course, Snow White. We're going to look at the box office mojo at the end, of course, but this Snow White is going to be an abysmal money loss. I mean, we're talking two, three, $400 million loss probably.
Yep.
It's an insane. Now, the Jason Statham movie is going to be on lower end. It's not going to be anywhere near as expensive. Therefore, they're easier to make profit, but they're not there yet. I guarantee you that. So this headline's a bit misleading. It's more how badly Snow White did in its second weekend than how well A Working Man did. Is my point. And of course, next weekend we have the Minecraft movie coming. So it's not going to help the Snow White whatsoever. But I'm kind of wondering how it'll work out with A Working Man, because the Minecraft movie is getting has a lot of hate and controversy around it too. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Now I didn't live through the age of Minecraft. You're more closer to that age. What is the feeling on that movie? Do you get a handle on that at all?
I honestly do not. It's gonna make a bunch of money.
You think?
Most
Okay,
likely. Yeah, Minecraft's too big. Technically, Minecraft is the biggest video game ever released, but they cheated to get that.
they
Um,
did. Yeah,
it's but it's still huge. Like, there's whole people who there's that Minecraft itself became its own cottage industry to the point where there's whole sections of YouTube where people have made millions and millions of dollars just uploading videos about Minecraft. Like, that is and that's pretty crazy when you stop and think about it. But yeah, no, I don't see any reason why it won't make a bunch of money. It's gonna be a terrible movie. It's gonna be ass cheeks movie. But I really don't see any reason why it would make a bunch of money. You also have to factor in that for the first time in maybe ever, there have been some good video game movies, right? We actually like the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I still think is the best video game adaptation ever made. Uh, and then you have the Sonic movies. All three of them are very fun. Third one's really good. Uh, for instance, right? So I don't see any reason why the market doesn't have the same expectation that it did 10 years ago for video game movies because pretty much a video game movie was you kind of expected it to be shit because most of them were.
yeah,
So
sure. That's definitely
I
true.
think you also have Uncharted made a little bit of money too, even though it had basically nothing to do with the game. It had the name on it and the same name characters and name only.
Very
So
bad casting.
I just don't see the, pessimism that there used to be for video game movies, so I think Minecraft will probably make a bunch of money, but I don't think they'll be able to do it twice unless they do some serious changes, but you never know, maybe that movie will actually be fun. As annoying as Jack Black can be, he can be fun,
Yeah, he
especially in
can
movies
be.
like that.
The problem is he's on the hardcore out right now,
Yep.
because of not even him. It's well, a little bit him, but it's more his partner there. What's his partner's name? Kevin or Keith or well, anyway, his partner said, was upset that the person didn't murder Donald Trump in his assassination attempt, and he said, "Next time, don't miss," and it pissed people off. And it's not even, but Jack himself didn't say that. His partner did. But Jack's also a Hollywood lefty. Let's be clear. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but he can be
He is.
annoying. Yeah, he can be, but he also can be fun. Like in the Mario movie, I thought he was fun.
Yeah, he played a good Bowser.
He did.
Played
He
a good
was
Bowser.
funny. Yeah.
No, I love the Mario movie. I've watched it a few times, and it's just one of those movies that I think I'll be able to forever watch. Right? Every
Yeah.
once in a while, there's a movie that comes out like Maverick. I can watch that whenever. It's just one of those movies now that's
Oh,
become part of
Maverick more
my
so for
life.
me. Well, Maverick
Yeah.
is so much better than the original Top Gun, dude.
Oh, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like you could convince me it's not even a sequel. You could convince
Yeah,
me of that
it's
because
just
it's
as
just so
yeah,
much
it's
better.
a really good movie where the first one was just beefcake for the girls, really, and the boys,
Yeah.
actually. But yeah, so but actually with the Mario movie, I felt that like because you really liked Spider-Man as well, the most recent one.
Yes.
And for me, I would say that because for my wife and I, they're both kind of kiddie movies. But I would
Yes.
say the Mario one was more family registering than Spider-Man was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. 100%. Yeah,
So
the Spider-Man movie was the most recent one was actually pretty heavy. A lot of heavy stuff happens in that.
yeah, but it's done from such a lighthearted point. And I'm not complaining about that, by the way.
Mhm.
But Kyle, that's what I knew it was a K. But it does come at it from a much more child point of view, kind of in the way we used to. We didn't used to be so white gloved about kids entertainment, you know.
No, it's true. That's 100% true.
Yeah, I've been seeing more and more clips. I haven't watched the movie, but from Doctor Strange 2. Boy, was that movie woke.
Uh,
Boy, that movie was so woke, dude. It's
I've
so,
never seen it either.
so woke. I remember Ben was on here trying to convince me, like, oh, see, she died in the end, Chester. No, Ben.
Well, somebody was saying that they're surprised that she wasn't announced for it. I'm like, "Did they kill her? How's she gonna?" I mean, I guess they could bring anybody back whenever they want, but
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
the
Be
multiverse,
interesting.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Loki's gonna be involved, so
Oh,
there's
dude,
that.
they're everything, including the kitchen sink, is going to be in this movie, dude.
I find it interesting though that Thor was first. Hemsworth was first in their little. You saw their little chair announcement. I'm assuming.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
thought he was done.
well, apparently not.
Well, money,
And I
money's
also find it
motivator.
interesting. Well, also Taika's gone. He was done with Taika. Uh, maybe he wants to
His
try and
name
play
is
Thor
David
serious again.
Cohen.
Yes. Uh, but I just find it interesting that he was first. Like he was the first one that they named, like they released as going to be in this movie. I don't know if that signifies anything. Maybe Thor's going to take a central role.
Mhm.
Maybe he's going to be the new leader of the Avengers. I don't know. Uh, but we'll see. But they in the Captain America movie, they planted the seed that they wanted Blackton America to restart the Avengers.
Right. Well, he's
Okay.
in it. He's in it.
Yeah.
He was
So
like the
I don't know.
third or
We'll
fourth
see.
name in that. To be fair, though, that was if you were excited about a movie, the way they released the cast information was fun. If you're excited about it, the problem is no one's excited about it because we're all like, we're kind of done with Disney.
Yep.
It's unfortunate because it could have been a fun thing. People like, oh, who's next? If we went back to when they first were putting out, and they got it from Paramount, were putting out the Marvel movies or the very first Star Wars movie. You remember the hype? The very
Oh
first
yeah.
Daisy Ridley movie. Remember the hype on that? Everyone was so excited. Yeah, Star Wars is back. Oh fuck! An hour later. But yeah, it's unfortunate because people are not excited about it, but it was a kind of a clever little idea they had. Hey, DeWolf, what's up, dude?
No, I liked it. I liked the idea. I thought it was clever. It was too long. It didn't need to be 5 hours. Why was it 5 hours long? But, it was a cool idea. It's a cool way to introduce it. I like that Robert Downey Jr., got the last thing. He is the most important person, in the movie as far
We
as
do.
for that franchise.
Yeah.
We will see, though, it might actually end up being pretty good. And here's why I say that. They need it to be.
Dude, it's
They need it to
wickedly
be.
chaotic though. There's too much going on, man. It's
Well,
too
we
much.
don't know exactly all of what's going on. We don't know the roles these people are gonna play. We just know they're gonna be in it. I would be very surprised if we get more than 1 or 2 scenes with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Like, they're old. They're, like, 85 years old.
Yeah, it probably just
Uh,
cameo, you're right.
yeah,
But
more like cameos than anything. But I'd imagine we might get a lot from, at least I hope we get some more from, Channing Tatum's Gambit because he is
I know
really good at
you're a,
Gambit.
you're a, you're a Channing Tatum Chad boy. I know.
I like him.
I
He's
agree,
funny.
DeWolf, by the way. Yeah, no, I can't stand the fact that they're wasting Doom in this way, dude. I can't.
Yep.
It's one of the best characters Marvel has. And whoever's idea was over at Paramount to do the Infinity Gauntlet run with Thanos was a smart move. It was, and of course Marvel managed to not screw it up until like the last movie, right? But Doctor Doom could take you a decade. You could run a decade with Doctor Doom easy,
Oh, easy. You could run 2 decades with Doom. He's Doom.
but they're
He
gonna,
is the villain of Marvel. He's
yeah,
Doom.
but he's the Sorcerer Supreme in the comics right now as well, which is an interesting take. But but as they demo so many characters, they bring them in, burn them, kill them, done. They're just wasting so much material because these idiots don't know comic books, and I just don't understand why we can't get a continuity boss that's at a high level with the MCU. But whatever. I don't have much faith for it. But what a bomb! What a waste of money. And speaking of comics, shall we get into a little bit of comic news?
Let's do it. Let's do it. After 62 years, Chester, that's older than you.
It
X-Men
is.
permanently retires one of its most iconic heroes. He's gone for real.
Who do you think they got
Uh-huh.
rid of?
Uh-huh. I have no idea. I'm assuming Cyclops since he's front and center.
You would think, and it's weird. There's a little bit of misdirection here from Mr. Robert Wood,
Mr.
Screen Rant,
Wood.
but yeah, they've ruined X Men. Everybody is either gender swapped or gay, or both.
Yep.
I'm not even exaggerating that at all, guys. That's exactly what they've done. Everybody is gay, gender swapped, race swapped. It's an absolute mess. The comic books are way worse than the MCU. Way, way worse. Like 1,000 times worth. It's completely burned to the ground. No, dude. Actually, the person who is gone forever is a very little person on this bit of art here that they're showing. Charles Xavier.
I
Yeah,
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm face palming.
you should be.
He
Um,
is the X-Men.
he is the X-Men. Yes, he is. There is no X-Men without him. There are mutants, of course, but the X-Men are Charles Xavier. But no,
Yep.
he's gone. He's out with his Shire Queen love in the universe, hunting for their daughter or what have you. But he did leave the X-Men a message. Would you like to hear the message he left for his X-Men?
Oh
Yeah,
boy. Let's see it.
I think I passed
Let's
that.
see it.
Yeah, here
Are
it
you
is.
sure?
So he did leave a message. Of course, Lilandra is his wife, and they're going off to look for their daughter, of course. But he did um, leave them a little message. No more fighting each other. Fight for freedom. Fight for justice. Do not fight your brother. Look upon your sister with patience. Help others and ask for go sister, of course, not brother, which is the universal word, right? Help others
Mhm.
and ask for help when it is needed. And for pity's sake, please build another school. What is he, Magneto now?
Apparently, yeah. Apparently.
Because that's what Magneto would say, right?
Yeah.
That's a Magneto message, not a Charles Xavier message. But don't you love it? Do not fight your brother. Look upon your sister with
Who
patience.
wrote that? Is so terribly written.
Well,
Like that is the most that's so boring.
it is, but
Like there's
it's
no where's the prose in that? Where's the artistry in this?
oh well, we don't
I
have
mean,
writers anymore.
it sounds like it was read on the evening news. It's so banal, right? Like it's
Yeah,
just like I'd be like, yeah, okay, who said that?
yeah. But
Xavier?
I'm
No, no
kind of
way.
curious which lesbian is currently in charge of the X Men. Um, you
Well,
know,
apparently was it Cyclops, I think? Xavier leaves mutant kind with a final messaging. Oh no, he sent that to everybody, but he told Cyclops that he was retiring, so
yeah,
who
yeah. No,
knows?
no. Cyclops, no way he's in charge of anything. I do believe it's a committee of lesbians now.
Amazing.
But it's I just saw this and I got a little bit of comic book news coming here today, but I was just like, one, there is no X-Men without Charles, and there is no school because he said build another one, so there literally are no X-Men. Okay,
Yep,
fine. But then his quote is exactly what Magneto has been banging on for 63 years
yep,
since they met. Excuse me. That's the whole thing.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
fight each
It's
other.
he basically said, "Hey, Magneto was right. Bye. Peace out.
Do not fight your
I'm
brother.
peacing
He
out."
says it twice.
Yep.
It's exactly what Magneto's whole thing was. And to be fair, Shaw as well of the Blackfire of the oh, I can't even remember the name of it. It just left my
Oh,
head.
so whether they realize it or not, they turned Charles Xavier into a white nationalist, white supremacist, but only for mutants. You see,
Just for
because
mutants. Yeah.
one of their common phrases that even Hitler used to say is "No more brother wars," right? No more
Yep.
brother wars because he
Sure.
didn't want Europeans fighting each other. I mean, sounds kind of the same. Sounds kind of the same right
Well,
here.
you know,
Uh,
you had the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but I mean, that was Magneto's whole thing. The Black King, Shaw, Sebastian Shaw with the Hellfire Club, same thing. It's the same thing, which is why they and Magneto work together. Of course, keep in mind one of his staunch allies is the White Queen herself, right? And of course, she's been an X Men. She's been in charge. She's been a teacher. So is Magneto, to be fair. But yeah, it's just such a weird thing. And once again, these people over at Marvel don't know comic books because they don't do their research. And I've been screaming this for how many years now? Anyway,
yeah, no, that's it's just such a shame. It's such a shame what's happened to the X-Men. X-Men and Spider-Man were my 2 jams when I was big into comic books as a kid,
yeah,
uh, and for various reasons, but they were just the coolest. The X-Men were cool, especially back then, they were cool, and they've turned them into fake and gay, and apparently Charles Xavier is a white nationalist for mutants now, so that's fine.
sure.
Because before Charles was all about take care of everybody, right? Right?
Yeah, he
It
wanted
wasn't
to
just about
have
help mutants.
love
He wanted
between.
everybody to
Yeah,
get along.
that's
Now
right.
all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Magneto was right.
Yep,
Fuck them all. Take
yep,
care of each other, only each other. That's it."
yep, 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 yep.
Uh,
So
it's so bad.
but it is what it is, and it's been dead for a while, so I'm not really concerned about it. But at least they gave him a normal heterosexual situation, which is
Mm,
in and itself shocking, knowing how these people work. But and of course, they've been on and off again since forever, right?
right. Isn't he like
Um,
90 something years old by this point in the comic book? Like what?
yeah, but he's had a lot of work done. Yeah.
Apparently.
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 But anyway, that's pretty big news for comic book fans that Charles has been basically separated from the X Men. It doesn't make any
Yep.
sense. Um,
No.
especially not having a good story arc that explains it, and having someone that's replacing him. You could have done that, but they didn't do that. They just like, oh, let's just get rid of Charles because he's the dangling Chad. You see.
Well, they could have easily just had one of his children replace him or something.
Yeah, but they
But no,
just want to get rid of the male presence, dude. That's what they're doing.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. But of course, speaking of that,
Real quick though.
mhm,
Which Cyclops costume do you prefer? Do you prefer the yeller one or the one in the middle of the picture there?
I don't like Cyclops at all.
Oh, well, nobody does.
Well,
But
the
which
big one,
costume do
the
you
big
prefer?
one, the ultimate one.
Okay. Nobody likes Cyclops. Come on.
I'm not a Liefeld fan with all the pouches.
The only one who seems to like Cyclops is his wife sometimes when she's not trying to
Occasionally,
bang.
when she's not banging Wolverine, yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on.
But I thought this was hilarious. It literally made me I laughed out loud. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I saw this. I saw this. Mary Jane is Marvel's new Venom. Fans aren't happy. Yeah, I saw this.
Now,
I saw this.
the fans have been pissed. Of course, the fans have been pissed for a long time when it comes to Peter and Mary Jane, right? They were married, things moved forward. Like, yeah, you got Mayday. They were doing some of those kind of future what if stuff with Mayday. The daughter or the granddaughter, I think. And it was like, that's cool. Let's do that. Let's have a legacy. You can do that, right? And of course, then they had the Mephisto deal where they basically broke up their love and marriage. Everyone was like, "What the fuck, Caseta? What the hell's wrong with you?" Right?
Mhm.
And then, of course, now more recently, because they got to get rid of that Peter Parker. We have our better brown Spider-Man. We need that one. And of course, Mary Jane. She's way too important for some man, let alone a white man. No, she needs to be a lesbian, which I understand she is now. Kinda. She swings both ways, you see. But there was a bit of hiatus where they basically threw Spider-Man into the wilderness, and during that time, of course, as you would, Mary Jane instantly betrayed him, went off with some dude named Paul, who came out of nowhere, and made a family, from what I understand, in some kind of pocket dimension. As you would, she came back. So they're saying that she came back maybe with powers, but then they said Paul, her new beau, you see, he's the new Venom. But the comic book fans just lost their shit over it. So now I guess they're saying, oh no 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 no, now Mary Jane is Venom. Do you like that better? No, we don't.
No, nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. There's one Venom. His name is Eddie Brock, and he's a villain. That's it.
Yeah,
That's the end of that arc. It didn't need to
yeah.
go further.
Doesn't need to get
We
any
didn't need
further. He
more.
eats people
Yeah,
happily,
eats people.
joyously.
Yep, loves it.
Yeah.
Loves it. Uh,
Yeah, Ben
no,
Riley could have been from DeWolf. That's true. I agree with that.
it's so silly. It's so silly. But they refuse to give anybody what they actually want when it comes to Parker. It has never been in question what the Spider-Man fans want. We all are in agreement that we want him back where he belongs with his wife and a normal
And kids
family
and
situation.
grandchildren.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we want.
Everybody wants the same thing. But for some reason Marvel's like, "No, no, not giving it to you. No."
No,
And they just
because
refuse.
they can't stand the white male. You know what it is, dude. You know what it is. You know what it
Crazy.
is. That's why they push that Miles Morales so much because he's a better Spider-Man because he's not white. I mean, it sounds stupid and racist because it is, but that's what it is. That's the truth right there. I wish it wasn't, but that is what it is. Um, and the thing is, I remember that, like I said before, there was a one shot or a mini series where it was in the future. Spider Man had lost his leg in some fight, I think, to Goblin or somebody.
Yep.
And he was retired with Mary Jane in the house, and I think it was their grandkid, Mayday Parker. And her spider powers had come out, and she was trying to hide it because I guess Peter was like, "You don't need to get into the line of work," but she wanted to do it, and she was secretly flying around being the Spider-Man or Spider Girl,
Right.
Mayday Parker. I was like, "Yeah, I like that. That was a cool little legacy they could have went with." And of course, the whole Ben Riley thing with Spider-Man that DeWolf mentioned, that would have been fine too. There's been plenty of shoot-offs, legacy things, and this is the thing about comics that is kind of been pissing me off for quite a while, and not just me, is the fact that you know Peter Parker's from the 60s, as
Yes.
many of these heroes are. Why
That's right.
can't we have them progress naturally? Why not?
Because they make too much money.
Yeah, but you can have legacy versions of them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, one of the best things I think, in my opinion, this was right around the time I stopped getting into comics heavy, but it wasn't because of this. I actually really liked it. I like Spider-Man 2099. I really like Miguel O'Hara. I think he's a great character. That's what they could have done.
Mm,
They could have jumped forward, and maybe not with Miguel
I like that
necessarily.
character too.
He's a little intense, but I like
He
that
a
about him.
little bit, yeah.
Uh, and But my point is there's so many ways you could keep it fresh and keep it moving. Make it doesn't have to necessarily be a direct lineage situation. It could be something like that. And there's just so many things they could do, but they're stuck with Peter because he's the one who sells. He's the draw. It's kinda like Batman, right? Bruce Wayne, they've multiple times they've tried to retire Bruce Wayne for various runs here or there, and some of them have been relatively successful, but by and large, Bruce Wayne is Batman. And a lot of people don't like the idea of passing the mantle, as they call it, on.
To
They'd much
Damien.
rather that character just die, if they die, or retire and come up with a new
And that's
character.
fine too.
I'm
You could do that
I'm
too.
fine either way because,
Yeah.
as we've seen with Batman, Nightwing is awesome.
He
Everybody
is
likes Nightwing.
awesome.
Who's
Yeah,
got a problem with Nightwing? Why
I
can't
like
he take
Nightwing.
over?
I agree.
Why can't he just be Nightwing and take over and run Gotham for a
Yeah.
while? Or you know what I
Or
mean?
yeah, no, I
Um,
agree 100%. Um, but I mean, because really, what they really need to do, and I've been saying this for a while, they need to do a full reboot of Marvel. A full
yes.
reboot. Now I know a lot of comic book fans like, no, dude, chill out, have a seat. We need
Chill
to
out.
have a
Take a seat.
full reboot. And what you
Yeah.
do is you go back and you have classic Marvel as an imprint, right? And you can tell stories with our favorite characters in their setting. It would be neat having Spider-Man back in the 60s, Iron Man back in the 60s. It would be kind of cool in the comic, especially with the artistic skill we do have available if they choose to use it, of course.
Mhm.
And then do modern stuff. And have what we're talking about with legacy characters, new characters. What, you guys can't create anymore? You're incapable of doing anything other than remaking. Is that what you're telling me?
Pretty
I,
much, yeah.
yeah.
What's funny is, of all the characters in comic books, I would say the only one that kinda does make sense as being able to be passed around is Venom, because it comes from the symbiote suit.
Venom, you can do.
However
Yeah.
however, it still wouldn't be Venom, because Brock and the symbiote, their consciousness merged, and that created Venom.
Right. It
It
should have a
wasn't it's
different name like Carnage or what
right,
have. You're right.
right,
Yeah.
like, that's how with Carnage and all the other there's a bunch of them now, but with Carnage and all the other ones that came out, they're new personalities each
Yeah. No,
time.
I agree with that.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the way it should be. Like, she shouldn't be calling herself Venom. That doesn't make any sense. She doesn't, I would assume, doesn't hate Peter Parker and Spider, I don't know, doesn't hate Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Uh, the the idea of legacy characters is exactly what they need to do. They need to retire these characters. They're not wrong in that assumption. One of the things that we've said this all the time, one of the things that manga does right,
Is
the
ends the
one of the things that
story.
manga right is it ends eventually,
Yeah.
unless it's One Piece. It
Well,
ends eventually.
Well,
And that's
even
a good
that's going to end eventually. But no, the Japanese ask me this question all the time. They don't understand why American comic books get written by different people than the original creator. They don't understand it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I get their point. And you're right though. I would like to see that. And
The
there's so
only
much more
one
you could do.
who I'm fine with being forever out of all of them is Superman, because he is Superman. The rest of them, we can, especially the ones that are just humans, like, Batman, he's just a guy with
Yeah,
money and discipline. Uh, he should be dead by now.
yeah,
Why
he
is he
should
still
be.
around?
And of course, Batman is easy with his Bat family to
Yeah,
share the love, dude. And they've tried to do that a few times. They just don't stick with it. But you can
no,
legacy that easy. Iron Man is super easy in Marvel, right?
yes,
You could have anybody in the suit. You don't need Tony Stark. And keep in mind, it isn't all until Robert Downey Jr. made the character famous that anyone gave a shit about Iron Man, by the way,
right.
right?
Yeah, he
Because
was
it
one
was
of
only
those
diehard fans
background
that read it.
situations.
Well, you
Mhm.
had Extremis and you had Demon in the Jar. Those are the
Demon in the
two
bottle.
best. Demon in the Bottle, thank you.
Yep.
Those are the two best runs that Iron Man that had, right?
Boy, did they
Um,
fuck up Extremis in that movie.
they did. That pissed me off because that was a great run, dude.
Uh,
That was a great run. I
and they
loved
they kinda
Extremis.
shoved Demon in the Bottle into that same movie. They did, like, 3 arcs in 1 movie and did none of
Yeah,
them
well,
justice.
that's what they do. They burn everything. They waste.
Yep,
They're wasteful. They take too much of a bite at the apple. Um,
yep,
and the simple fact of the matter is, if you have a la Thanos in the background, you
mhm,
can have little things happen in your movie that tie into your overarching thing that's coming and the growing dread, right? But keep your movies down to earth for the character. Keep them
Yep.
simple. They don't need to be earth shattering,
Right.
right? And that's a
I agree.
mistake that they definitely make. But Marvel Comics is in such disarray. Some people argue DC is just as bad. I don't agree. I think DC has a lot of problems, but it ain't Marvel, dude. Marvel has been completely co-opted. Completely.
Yeah, they've been
They've
infested,
it's
if you
it's
will.
disgusting what they've done. They're
No, it
even
needs a I agree with you. It needs a complete reboot,
yeah,
back to square one. We need to rebuild the lore, insofar as the rules of this universe.
yeah,
They need to
create a
establish some.
cosmology, a
Yeah,
Bible as it
full
were. Yeah.
cosmology, a full Bible,
Yeah.
and bring in your big dog characters, your Spider-Man, your X-Men, your Fantastic Fours, and what have you. Bring those guys in first. First, don't wait. In fact, you could if you're gonna do this, you need to introduce this new thing with the ones you're gonna run with. So Spider-Man would obviously be probably the one right out of the gate. Uh, because he's, Spider-Man. He's the most important character in Marvel.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
would do it like I said with imprints. Have classic, have them set in their correct time period or adjust it because you would need to create a Bible, right? Have them
yes.
set in their proper time in a classic thing, and then maybe have a modern book set in modern time called The Parkers, right? And then have offshoots like Mayday Parker or things like that that are offshooted from that. Maybe Peter in the future has created a superhero academy or agency or something like that. Maybe he's become more corporate, which is something he's a very smart guy. He could definitely do that. Maybe he's at odds with Tony or whoever is Tony. You keep him alive just by technology, right? But maybe he's at odds with him and they have different views on how to save the world type of thing. You could do that, right? There's many things. Some characters can carry on. Wolverine could definitely be there, right? You carry on Wolverine. What I want to see them do is create new, interesting characters. And I know people are going to say to me, well, they have. No, they haven't. What they have done is created offshoots that only care about the message.
The message.
They're not telling people's stories. They're not. And I'm going to get to that here in a second with my movie review I'm about to get into. And
Uh-oh.
yeah, no,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Ruh-roh radios.
So
Chester,
yeah,
I'm in my kitchen right now, so I can't read anything, just so we're
that's
clear.
okay. That's okay. But yeah, let's go ahead and let me do my movie review and wait for you to get done then. Um,
Here it comes, folks.
Monkey Man.
Did you like Monkey Man? Is he a fan of Monkey Man? That is the
I
question we are here to answer.
loved it. I
Isn't that
loved
the movie
it.
that's Indian John Wick? Is that the movie I'm
Well,
thinking it is?
let me give my review. And I'm not,
Okay.
I don't need to give any spoilers for the movie, so I won't. Because the premise is the movie anyway. There is nothing at all about this movie that is John Wick. Nothing. Why do people keep saying that? I don't know. The very end fight scene, probably. But this is not John Wick in any way, shape, or form at all. So get that out of your mind. Second of all, this is a philosophical drama that has some amazing action in it, fair enough. But this is a philosophical drama, very much leaning into the mythologies of the Indian people. Now, I don't know this guy very well. He was the kid in Slumdog Millionaire. My wife says he's in a bunch of drama shit, which I don't watch. But I thought he did a wonderful job. He jacked himself out in a proper soldier build, by the way. You look at him here in this picture. Because Jack Reacher, my wife and I just watched season 3. It's better than season 2 for sure, but not as good as season 1. He is bloated up way too much. I know it looks good for the screen. The ladies like the ass shots. I get it. But that's not actually a soldier's body at all. That guy playing Jack Reacher. That's not what a soldier looks like. This guy's build is what a soldier looks like. And he's not even a soldier in it, but I'm just saying it's more believable. What this movie is, is a tragedy movie. This character's lost his mother, which once again isn't spoilers. It from the very beginning of the movie you start seeing this effect of it in a pretty horrible way. And he wants his whole life since his little when it's a little boy, he wants vengeance. And eventually, as a man, he puts himself in a position to get that vengeance and screws it up. Right? He ends up getting taken in by some, some guru guy and his small little group. And there's also another in the background, the whole movie, there's another guru who is also like a multimillionaire, billionaire guy who's evil and he's connected to everything that this kid is connected to, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of mythology and spirituality. The Hindi spirituality is involved in this. And it's this movie is not afraid of the absolute filthy state of India. Matter of fact, it's almost a feature
It's
in
not a
it.
bug, it's a feature.
Yeah,
Chester, I
because
have I have a question for you. You said he's all about getting revenge.
pure
Yeah?
vengeance. Yeah.
At any point, does he call himself Vengeance?
No, but he comes to. No, he doesn't call himself vengeance. I get your thing. Um, but um, but there is a lot of spirituality coming out of the gurus that maybe suggest to him that that's not really the best way to be. And in the end, in the very last second of the movie, does he learn that lesson? I'll leave that up to you to go watch. But it's super well done. It's a really good drama. The action is crisp and really good when it happens, and there is a lot of action in it. But like I'm telling you, this is a philosophical drama, is what it actually is, and it's good. Matter of fact, it's so good. I'm kind of surprised it didn't get nominated for awards. I mean, literally, because Slumdog Millionaire took a bunch of awards, if you remember back in the day, and I watched that movie and it was pretty good. This one's better, right? I'm really
Well, it's also
surprised,
speaks more
huh?
to you being an action movie and less of a whatever the fuck Slumdog Millionaire is classified as, a drama, I guess.
It's a drama.
Um,
And
yeah.
of course, Jordan Peele is involved in this movie, but you can't see him at all in the making of it. He's just a Western name attached to it, which is good because Jordan Peele is an absolute jackass, right?
Ass.
As far as what the films he makes. Dev Patel is involved with everything in this movie. I do believe that's the also the actor. I think the actor is Dev Patel, um, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I think he is though. But it's spectacular. Now, the reason I made that reference before, and I'll come into it now, there's actually transgenderism in this movie, done right.
Done right.
See, that's the thing. You can tell stories of political stories, religious stories, sexual, preference stories. You can tell those stories, but they're more of a color than the point. If you want it
Mm.
to be the point, that becomes a lot harder, right?
Mhm,
You
mhm,
can do
mhm.
it. We've seen people successfully do it. But when it's a color, like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, I always come back to with that because I love that movie. Sure, this is a transgender guy coming out of communist Germany after the wall fell with
Fucking
Hedwig and the
commies.
Angry Inch, but it is a color of the character, but the character is about finding oneself, peace in your mind, and some amazing music, right?
Fucking
Um,
commies, Chester.
well, yeah, but in this movie, the transgenders actually are the good guys.
What a surprise.
And well, no, because you understand what's happening with them and why it's happening. It's not a big part of the movie. It's just something that is there, and he happened to get helped by them, or I guess the guru would say fate. But there's no issue whatsoever with the transgender in this movie. It won't piss you off at all. Matter of fact, it's kind of neat what they do with it. So my point being is this movie does have it in it, but it doesn't hurt the movie at all, at all. So you can add those kind of features without destroying your narrative, is my point.
Mhm.
And they kind of come in the end in kind of a cute way, actually. But they're not a big part of the movie. They're really not. You know how in every action movie you have the training montage?
Yeah,
They're kind of more a part of that moment of the story, right? And it's cute what they do with it.
right.
I don't want to say much more because I don't want to spoil the movie.
So what
But
I'm hearing is Chester has finally succumbed. He has become woke.
yeah, oh sure. I am super woke. That's me. But I know I'm just saying
Okay.
I love this movie, and um, I've seen many woke movies in the past. Well, I wouldn't call them woke though, because they did have features that the woke like, but they were just movies. Whereas the woke, all that matters is the message. Nothing else matters, and that's why they fail. You see. And in this movie, the
And
transgender thing is
nothing
not
else
important. It's not
matters.
important at all. However, go watch this movie if you haven't watched it. Now, um, I speak a lot of languages, and therefore I have a really good ear for language. I would suggest you turn your subtitles on for this one, even though it's
A
in
little rough, is
English.
it?
I followed it. There were a couple moments with one of the gurus speaks in a very soft way, so I had to kind
Mhm.
of back it up a couple times to understand what he was saying. But I could get through it. But I would suggest you put the subtitles on because it's Hindi English.
You heard it here first. Chester hates Indians.
I do. That's true.
Yep, nailed it.
Um, but no, highly suggest this movie. Have you seen this movie?
I have not.
Yeah, you should watch
I
it.
have not. I
It's
will
great.
say this though, so who made this movie? Is it a Hollywood movie, an Indian movie? What is this?
It's got Jordan Peele attached to it, so therefore it's probably has some Hollywood money. It is Universal release. So yeah,
Interesting.
Hollywood is at least the distributor of it. But no, if you look in the credits, this Dev Patel, who I think is the actor, I actually think it is the actor, did everything right. And it's great. He did a wonderful job. I really liked it. I was shocked how good it was. And I was more shocked that this didn't get nominated. I mean, it's really a movie that's worthy of nomination.
Right. And yet, no nomination, huh?
I didn't see any. Let me go check because I don't recall seeing anything with Monkey Man getting accolades. Let me
Hmm,
check.
curious.
That's not how you spell that.
Pretty upset
Okay,
at you right now.
I didn't do it.
Oh, sorry. I was talking to my wife. You broke one of my bowls, Chester.
Oh, what happens?
Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
No,
Always go buy more.
no, that's not helping.
It's one of my Japan bowls, Chester. Made in Japan. I got from the Asian market.
Oh, did you?
Hmm.
Let's see if Wikipedia puts it as getting any nominations here down at the bottom. Let's see here. Well, that's not helping. Here we go. South by Southwest Film Festival. It won. Okay, good. It won Best Action at the Golden Trailers. Astra. Okay, Astra. It was nominated. It won the Astra Best Action Movie. So nothing big. BAFTA. It was nominated, but it didn't win anything. Yeah, not anything important. And I'm surprised because it is a very solid movie. But anyway, that's my review. Um,
That's his review of The Monkey Man.
yeah, go watch it. I'm telling you,
Why
it
is it
won't be
called Monkey
disappointing.
Man?
Mythology.
Is he part monkey? He's part
No,
is that what it is?
no. This
Hmm,
is a philosophical drama.
like it. I don't like it right off the rip. He's
Yeah.
gonna call himself Monkey Man. There's no monkeys involved? What the hell?
Well, just go watch it. I don't want to give spoilers.
Does he meet Sun Wukong? Is that what happens? Is that why he's Monkey Man?
No, it's not. This is Hanuman. Is This is a story about Hanuman. You got to remember
I
in
see.
the Indian mythologies, cosmology. Uh, they have mythologies going back way further than anything we're kind of dealing with the rest of the
Mhm.
world. And they talk of an age. They speak of an age where there were monkey men who worked with the gods to do various things, and eventually the gods modified them to become us. It's the same thing as the Anunnaki stories and all of that stuff. The only difference is the Indian stories are more in depth,
Yeah.
because whereas with the Anunnaki stories, you had Enki down in South Africa area, taking the monkey men and making them into humans to be good slaves. In the Indian stories, they used the monkey men first to just be slaves, but they really weren't very good slaves. So eventually modifying them. So it's like an extended version of the story. So therefore,
Director's cut.
yeah, but there's a lot of kind of monkey men in Indian mythologies. There's a lot of that
I got
from
you.
the early ages,
There
hundreds
is
of
a
thousands
Monkey
of years
Man
ago.
game.
Um, you know, they like the bridge, the actual land bridge or road that goes from Sri Lanka to India. Was the stories talk about the monkey men building that for the god Shiva, I think it was, or Rama, maybe Rama. They were building it for, and of
Rama?
course, well, it's one of their big gods, right? But
Yep.
now, of course, they consider that legend. It's just fantasy stories. But of course, was it a decade ago? They found that road is there, and it's just under the surface. So
Uh-oh.
someone built a freaking causeway from Sri Lanka to India at some time in the past that is now
Uh-oh.
underwater.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. They didn't have that technology, Chester. The archaeologist told me. They
They
assured me.
they did
They assured me that
they
they
did.
that primitive man was really dumb and they didn't have things. They
Um,
didn't have massive aqueduct systems that go for miles and miles and miles. They assured
no,
me
they
that didn't
definitely
happen.
don't have ocean wall breakers that cover entire continents. They don't have that at all
Mm-mm,
either.
mm-mm. Couldn't be.
Or two
Couldn't be.
kilometers of some kind of technological device under a pyramid. They don't have that.
No. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Uh,
They wouldn't, Chester, they wouldn't have lied to me. So I don't
no,
know why you're trying to spread this misinformation, but the
definitely
powers that be have never known to lie.
no. That's
Never
definitely true.
once about anything
Not
ever.
yeah,
And yeah, this guy, get him YouTube with his misinformation. Get him. Get him.
yeah.
It's kind of funny
Um,
how right people are being proved though about some of these things. Like like the pyramid thing. For years now, people have been claiming that those are not what we've been told they are. That there's some kind of potentially a energy device or a interstellar communication or interplanetary or across the planet, like all sorts of theories, right? And then we find this stuff under there, and we're like, well, wait a minute,
yeah, I
wait a
do need to
minute.
get into that. I'm just answering a message from my wife.
Uh
She's I sent my car with they came and picked up my car
oh.
for taking it in for the inspection. Every 2 years, you got to get an inspection here, and of course they're replacing the tires. And I have a sports car. It's painful, and there's some other parts they have to replace. And basically, it's a looks like a $4,000 bill. My wife is like, "Oh my god!"
Oh my god. You got $4,000 though. I mean, you'll be all right.
Yeah, but I mean, I still don't want to pay 4,000. Um, well, replacing the tires is 2 grand for me. So I already knew that, but I guess there's some other things they wanted to repair and update. And okay, fine.
$2,000 for tires, Chester. Isn't that mental?
It is, isn't it? They are badass tires, though. I have equal ones on that car at low profiles. Oh, they're sweet, dude. And they're wide as hell. It's like twice as wide as the average car tire.
Street
um,
racers.
they are. I love those. They are beautiful tires, but they're 500 a pop.
Good thing it doesn't snow over there much.
Yeah, no, not in my area. And of course, I
Hmm.
would just buy snow tires if I had to, but and just switch them out. But yeah, it's just kind of thing. And I ride the car hard, so replacing my tires every 2 years is not 2 or 3 years is not odd for me.
Right.
It is what it is. And
No,
those
I'll
the
check it out. I've heard that this movie's actually pretty good,
yeah,
to
it's
be honest.
excellent.
So I'll check it out eventually. I think they have it on Prime actually. It's kind of mental how much of this is happening though. As Hollywood is dying, others around the world are seeming to pick up the slack. Bollywood has put out some amazing action movies over the last
They
5,
have
6 years. South Korea has put out a couple really good movies as well.
they have.
Um, the ones who seem to be lacking in the live action anyway is Japan, which it might just be a lost cause.
I think
I
it
don't know.
is.
Maybe we'll never get another Kurosawa, but they could use one.
And
They could
yeah,
really use one.
but they really shine in the anime department. So,
Yes, yes.
it's where they
It just
focus
fits
their energy. It
their
is on Prime.
ability
You
to
know, I
tell
watched it on
stories
Prime.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And of course, like I said, we also watched Reacher. And
I gotta
the
finish that.
yeah, no, the last episode just came out. We watched the last episode here the over the weekend. And it's fine. It's more back to form as it should be. Season
Yep.
2, they wanted to bring in a team, and it's like, dude, it's Reacher. What are you doing?
What
Right?
are you even doing right
What are you
now?
doing?
What are you even doing?
Now they got that mulatto girl that they keep trying to put on us, and they keep threatening us with a spinoff. And it's like, well, you got to waste money if you do that. I don't have anything wrong with that. I don't have a problem with that girl particularly, but she's just the typical bitchy, annoying female. And of course, the other female this season's love interest is also one. She's not a good actress. She brings the
No.
whole show down. And
Yes.
two, just standard bitchy girl. Why? Why can't we have like a Scully, right?
I'll
She
give them
was
credit. They had the courage to make her kind of an idiot, right?
oh,
She's the
she's
reason that most
sh
of this is happening.
oh, it's a complete and she's selfish and they did do that.
Mhm.
But and I get your point. But she's just a bad actress, dude.
Yeah. No,
She
she's not
is
a
a
good
bad
actress at all.
actress.
I actually hope the next season they don't even have a love interest because that part just drags it down. In all honesty, I get why they do it because they think women care, but I really don't think most of them give a shit if he's
No,
got a romantic interest. It just feels cliche at this point because
and
they've done 3 seasons and every time it's some new chick and blah, 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 and it's,
yeah. The first
what are we
season
doing?
girl I did like actually, and they had great chemistry
Yeah,
those two. But
yep,
one of the I don't know what your opinion on this is, but for me, um the kind of jacked muscle guys don't
yep,
really make a good love scene character on film.
yeah.
I don't know what that is. Now that might be just the male opinion. And maybe the females have a different opinion on that. But some guy who's more lithe, like a Kurt Russell type,
Right.
of build, kind of pulls off the love scene a lot better than the big, hulking guy.
Well, we don't need to see the Incredible Hulk making out with a chick. You know what I
No, we
mean? Like,
don't.
that's not what we're here for. Not what we're here for.
No.
It's also you mentioned the one from the first season. In my experience, big men like that often end up with women like her. Much more normal, much more, she's not she's not a crazy athlete and she's not totally a bitch or anything. She's kind of sweet, looks like the type of girl who you could actually build something with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
She's
his
not
chemistry
your
was great with her.
she's not trying to be a boss bitch or blah 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 blah. I I think a woman like her and someone like him. Now, obviously, there is no one like him because he's a complete psychopath. But
Well,
someone with a similar background would probably end up with a woman like her, and it would make a lot of
yeah,
sense. I think that's why it worked because they just kind
yeah.
of made sense as a couple.
It
The other
did.
ones,
It worked really
not
well.
really.
Yeah, it worked
Yeah,
really well. The other stuff has been nonsense. But yeah, I mean that's also a thing with Reacher. We don't really need the love interest because he
no,
is just he's a chaotic force of vengeance is what he is. He's pure
yes,
psychopath. He's not a good guy, right?
yeah,
And that's fine. But this season was better than last for sure.
yeah. He
But
has absolutely no problem killing people. He
at
doesn't
all,
hesitate one bit.
no.
Uh, it's it's just one of those things, man. Like He's basically a interpretation of the Punisher, right? Very
Yeah,
similar character, except Punisher, I would personally, for me, I think Punisher is a good guy. I think he was a good guy that got broken. Reacher never was. He's always been this way. He's a psychopath. He's a genuine psychopath. He has no, empathy or emotion towards killing or destroying people, and they show that very clearly in the first season that he's pretty much always been this way.
yeah,
And if it wasn't for the fact that his mother basically told him to not be like that and to help people, he wouldn't do it at all. He doesn't
yeah.
care. He simply doesn't care about people like that. Um, and I find that actually very interesting as a character. I think it's actually kind of neat that he created this total psychopath who just so happens to also do good sometimes,
Yeah, well, he's
right?
a
Like,
purely sociopath. He has no emotional connection. He's
yes,
the autism. But yeah, no. Punisher is a very different character.
yeah,
Um, Punisher is juxtaposed to Captain America, Steve Rogers, right?
right,
Frank Castle, Steve Rogers. Captain America is pure order and law. Punisher is justice.
yep,
I mean, it's very much the Batman and Superman thing, right? Yeah.
yep.
Anyway, Monkey Man, go check it out. Now, to take a minute before I continue, to continue the conversation you started, and I had to answer my wife. Yeah, I'm sure you've all seen the news come out of Egypt,
Yep.
and the fact that they found 8 gigantic pillars. Well, first of all, under the first layer of the pyramid, there's like a temple setting with many like shrine and temple buildings built around. There's
Mhm,
many of them.
mhm,
Then
mhm,
underneath that platform, there are 8 gigantic tubes, hollow tubes, with some kind of metallic wiring wrapping around them that are 800 meters deep, long, 800 meters. Then they're sitting on top of a platform of 4 platforms that are themselves another 800 or so meters deep, sitting on a yet another platform. And there seems to be, I don't know, an ocean down there. And of course, keep in mind, the Egyptologists have been quietly removing water from under Giza for decades, and they just can't seem to find the end of it. It's almost as if it's a feature. However, what you're looking at is a complete thing that is near 2 kilometers deep below the pyramid. Now, first things first, could we build a 2 kilometer deep hole that is the squared off the size of a pyramid? Can we do that? Is
I
that
don't know. I don't think
possible?
I maybe, but it'd be a feat. I know they have trouble, Chester, they have trouble with modern technology constructing something similar to the pyramids. It's hard
Yeah.
to do now.
Well, that's the
They did it
problem
back
with
then.
That's the problem with this discovery. People have been talking for decades and decades, a century, really, over a century, about who built the pyramids. Oh, it'd be so hard for us to do it these days. Well, we just added a feature that makes that look like kindergarten time, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm,
mean, these guys, Egyptologists got a big problem on their hand right now
mhm.
because first of all, can we do that? Keep in mind the deepest hole we've ever dug in the earth is 12 kilometers over at the Kola borehole in Russia, and that's a
Yep,
borehole. So how what's the diameter on that? Couple feet, two
yep,
3 feet, right? It's not very wide.
no,
And they got down to they hit this 12 kilometer down area, and they couldn't get through whatever is down there. They tried for a while. They used all kind of different tips. They tried to invent technology. They just can't get through whatever they ran into. Of course, they can't
yes,
really see it, you know. Nevertheless, that's the deepest we've ever gone. So you're talking about digging, and what is the width of that? I mean, that's
pretty big,
hundreds of
pretty
feet
large.
wide,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And it goes down nearly 2 kilometers,
right.
a mile, over a mile. And holy shit, dude. right? And keep in mind those
Mhm.
tubes are gigantic and they're hollow. And they got some metal that's spiraling down along them. And it's interesting thing when you look and you read the pyramid scripts, particularly the pyramid war stories, because there were two pyramid wars. Keep in
Yep.
mind that Egyptologists could care less about what the people in Egypt said. Idiots. Um,
Morons. What do they know?
yeah, what do they know? But in those stories, in the pyramid wars particularly, we do get a lot of information about what the pyramids were used for, right?
Yes.
As far as what the stories tell us. One, when the gods come in from their other planets or their heavenly travels and come down onto the planet, the pyramid could be seen from space, and they use it as a locator to come into Mesopotamia, right?
Yep.
That was a use. A second one was for them to communicate with their home planet, right?
Yep.
That's what they said it was, a communication device. And a very energetic one, so much that it would glow when being in use and light up the entire region,
Yep.
right? Now that's what they say in the stories. Now you can say, "Oh, those are mythologies and then allegories and stuff like that." Okay, fine, but that's what they say it's for.
Yep.
And of course, in the Pyramid Wars, after they were done, they were finished. And which I won't go into the whole plot of it, but in the end, they made a decision that we can't leave the technology because in what we are now have as a stairwell that goes up to the king's chamber was not a stairwell. It was full of crystals to send the energy they were generating below and send it up to use for them to communicate with their planet is what they said.
Yep.
So they removed all those crystals from it because they were like, well, we can't leave this here and allow something like this to happen together again and it to fall into the wrong hands. And then they
Mhm.
say in the story that they went to the Sinai and built a new communication platform that was more easily defendable. And that lasted
Mm.
for quite a while. And then the war kicked up again between the two families again, and the upstart kid of what you would call Yahweh, right, or
Mhm.
Nanar Sin, who is Allah, by the way, um,
Mhm.
decided, no, screw that, and he went and got angry, and he dropped the great weapon of mighty destruction that on the new communication center in the Sinai, destroying that in a gigantic mushroom cloud, and the poison of the bomb fell out to the east, unfortunately, because of a bad wind, fell on Mesopotamia, killing everything anyway. And the gods had to run away. So it was a major faux pas. And Marduk up in Babylon was laughing because all of the destruction completely missed them. So once again, that sounds like a nuclear bomb, doesn't it?
A bit. Yep.
Yeah, and we
A
got
bit.
many mentions of nuclear bombs in the
Would
past, by
also
the way.
explain the the Saudi Arabian desert and why it's so shit
Yeah, and
yet devastated.
it can also explain the Sinai itself, right?
Yes.
Anyway, that's the story. I don't You don't have to believe it. It's irrelevant. I'm just saying that the stories from Kemet or Egypt is that it's a communication device and a sighting device from coming in from the above the planet into the atmosphere. That's what they said.
Right.
And of course, the Egyptologists had completely laughingly threw that to the side. Oh, just silly fantasy. Well, you have a near 2 kilometer, over a mile deep structure that looks technological. What you got to say now, buddy?
Yeah. Well, you also have all the hieroglyphs and things that show what appear to be things like light bulbs
Sure.
and all sorts of stuff like this that they supposedly didn't have, right? They didn't have access to this technology.
Yeah.
The hieroglyphs that show giants building things and da
Yeah.
da 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 da.
Yeah.
Like, what if those aren't myth? What if that's what
Sure.
happened and you're just
Well,
ignoring it because it doesn't fit your narrative?
my theory would be that the technology which is mentioned in many texts, not
Mhm.
just those, all
Mhm.
over the world, there's mentioning of technologies. Sometimes they refer to it as magic in the more recent versions, but when you go back to the older versions of things, it's very science fiction. Um,
Yep.
but they talk about technology all the time. My theory would be that. They did have technology, quite advanced technology, but it's
Yes.
just very different than the technology we use today.
Correct.
It's different. It didn't function. And one thing we definitely have over them is we can build things really small. We're good at that,
Right.
where they clearly weren't, right?
Well,
Um,
and we only recently gained that ability. Well, I say recently, very recently when it comes to microscopic, like microchips, but most likely we're going to put on all the tinfoil today. Most likely that came from, the aliens and all
maybe,
the crash landings in the 30s and 40s.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden we could just make computers and quadruple and 1,000% increase their power
And
in
of
a
course,
matter of
yeah.
weeks.
And of course, our governments are telling us that yes, aliens are real now. Keep that in mind,
Yeah, that's
right?
right. That's right.
And a lot of people are arguing that no, well, they're not really. They're from here, right? And if we're talking about thousands of years ago with this technology, and if you read those stories in totality, which I have, they fell off really bad because one, their planet was destroyed. And therefore, where is their planet? Now, you have people like Sitchin and others that try to say, well, it's somewhere out there in space, Sirius B or whatever, stuff like that. But if you
Yep.
look to most of the references to the planet of crossing, Nibiru, right? Or Nibiru, right?
Mhm.
It's actually referring to Marduk or Nurgle, which of course is Mars.
Mhm.
And we've seen many videos and photographs that seem to suggest some kind of broken structures on Mars, haven't we?
Yep.
Right? And those things,
Yep.
those statues and things that we see, they look rather Egyptian, don't they?
Mhm.
So
Conveniently, which it's
conveniently,
weird, right? Because every time one of these happens, we get this new image from Mars or the moon or wherever. An asteroid. I saw one the other day on an asteroid. Looks like there's a
right?
pyramid or a
Some
whatever's on it.
structure,
They always look Egyptian.
they do.
Why? There's a thousand different cultures that we could be matrixing our minds around, but for some reason, it's always Egyptian.
Yeah,
That's very interesting to me. That's
and
very interesting to me.
and if you read the original stories, um, when they left their planet, which I'm arguing is Mars, right? Because there are many
Yep.
references to it being Mars. But when they were getting off their planet and trying to look for solutions because they were having problems because the volcanism on their planet was reducing and they were getting colder and it was becoming a problem to survive. But them trying to get to Earth to look for a resource because they wanted to atomize gold, put in the atmosphere to reflect the heat, and therefore continue on was their plan. I
Yep.
mean, that's a pretty elaborate plan for gods, isn't it? Um,
Seems like it.
but them getting to Earth, the whole story and the process of them getting to Earth was quite elaborate. They lost many ships and many people died trying to get to Earth until they finally got it right. So their space travel abilities, just from Mars to Earth, weren't great. They
Right.
weren't, right?
Definitely
And
not.
eventually, they have there's tons of stories which I won't go over, but in the end, this 12,000 year ago cataclysm, which seems to be pretty much the birth of Venus, is what
Mhm.
happened. She started, banging into things and really tore the hell out of Mars and hurt Earth as well as she went past us. Um, they just didn't have the ability to deal with that. Neither would we, right?
Right.
And Mars was just wiped out. And all they had was who was left here. But if you read the stories, excuse me, before all of that got really out of control, there's a very interesting little story I think is important. A bunch of delegates came from their planet to speak with the gods, or at that time, of course, they didn't call them gods, but the elite shining ones that are on Earth, and they were having a big party, and one of the gods that was on a very important god that's on Earth, she's Hathor, or she's the cow goddess of India, right? Was
Yep.
talking with one of her classmates from school, right? And once again, this is thousands of years old story, right? And he's like, don't want to be rude there, but you're looking awful old. And it seems that they did some investigation that something on this planet was causing them to age abnormally. And they were having problems. And therefore, what did they do? They quarantined the planet, which would
Right.
mean that the vast majority of their people were on Mars when it got wiped out and they died. And the only ones left here was a small group of them. And who knows, there might be some of their legacy still hanging around.
Could be. One last thing that I find interesting because like I said, like you even said, a lot of the old stories, a lot of the myths, quote unquote, the legends, and just the modern lore about what the pyramids actually are, what they were built for. Uh they are the pyramids, especially the I think wait, which one is it? The Great Pyramid? One of them, well, pretty much all of them actually are made out of limestone, right? They have a lot of limestone and marble and whatever.
Sure.
Well, one of the properties of limestone is it's sound absorbing. It absorbs sound. It absorbs
Yeah.
sound waves and is actually really good at soundproofing. If you ever want to soundproof something, limestone panels will do it. They're a little heavy though. Uh, so it's interesting. I wonder if the pyramids were there to it facilitate it, the communication, or if they were there to stop it, to make sure that it couldn't get out. Any messages couldn't get out.
I don't know. They said it was to communicate out. And when you get inside the pyramid, some of the stones inside of there are very crystalline and would be
Yep.
very good at moving electrical waves and, plasma and
Yep.
stuff like that. But
That's true.
whatever. We do have some of this information. I kind of think that there is some truth in these stories, some. And the simple fact of the matter is what they found under that pyramid, what you got to do now, because I don't want to hear anything because you sitting there trying to come up with all these theories of how they built the pyramids. That ain't shit. How did they build a freaking a mile and a half shaft into the earth, have freaking 800-meter pedestals, and then 800-meter hollow tubes with metal running around it? Who did that? Who did that? Slaves? Even though we have no evidence that Egypt used slaves for construction at all, by the way. None. Matter of fact,
None.
we have accounting of them paying workers from the lowliest to the highest. Slaves didn't build them. I know we all love Moses and those stories, but there's zero evidence there were any slaves used to build a pyramid, right?
Right.
So think about the money involved. Think about the time involved. And they do account that the pyramid was built in 80 years, right?
Mhm.
That's what they say. That seems like a awfully long and short period of time comparatively. But we got bigger conversations. I made a joke earlier. If you go on Google Earth and you look at the coastline everywhere in the world, pretty much everywhere in the world, which you're going to see the American East Coast is a perfect one. Just go look at that. There's an artificial coastline built, a breakwater,
Yep.
the entire length of the American East Coast, pretty much. Now, it's
Yep.
clearly man-made, right?
Mhm.
And California just repaired a piece of it, to be honest with you, recently. Spent $250 million doing so. And there was a little teeny piece. The whole world's coastlines are like that. Who built that? I mean, it's certainly something humans could do, but that is a major endeavor to build a breakwater. We're talking thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of miles of breakwater. That's a serious endeavor, dude. Who did that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm
Yep.
not saying it's this wicked high technology because it's not, but still, someone has to get out there and do it. And we have examples of this all over the place: artificial structures, artificial land masses, artificial landscaping. Like I've said before, the entire plateau of Giza is man made. That is enormous, dude. And
Yeah.
Vietnam, the entirety of Vietnam is artificially created canals and land, just like England is, right?
Yep.
Now, they say England was done 500 years ago. And it's like, can you really accomplish in a century all of that? Because that's what they
Apparently,
say,
according to them. According to them, Chester.
according to them.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of evidence that the Amazon, the Amazon River, is constructed. It's not natural.
Yeah,
It's
manipulated. Sure.
yeah, very well, at least right, at least heavily manipulated. Uh,
Yeah.
and I just basically what we're getting at is history's full of bullshit. We've been
Yeah, it
lied
is.
to so much about everything, and you can't even say, "Well, they were just wrong." No, they lied. They knew what they were doing. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing, especially Egyptology. One of the reasons why I decided I didn't wanna be an Egyptologist is when I found out how much they lie.
Yeah.
They
Well,
just
you
straight
hear
lie
me
about
angst
shit.
about them all the time, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I wanted to be. I love Egypt and ancient Egyptian history. I think it's
Dude, I
fascinating,
have a
but
degree in it.
then I talked to a couple of them, and I'm just like, "Oh, these aren't honest people, is what these
No, and
are.
the
These
ones
aren't
who
people I
are
wanna be with."
aren't allowed to be honest. But I do
Yeah,
love it. I love it because this new discovery, you can't argue it. Now they're trying. They're trying to say, "Well, we're not really sure about the data." They're trying to spin it, but it ain't gonna
yeah.
happen. It ain't happening, right? Because it's become news now and it's out. But I love the fact of it because how you go to explain that shit? Go ahead. I'm waiting.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Yeah.
Let's see it. No, they'll try. They'll try. They're gonna try and come up with some nonsense or try and bury it or say it'll be one of these conspiracy theories again, but I don't know, man. It's out there now. It's kinda like it's very interesting that what you started this off with, talking about how Argentina and other countries around the world now are declassifying stuff.
Yeah.
Um, People been talking about the Great Awakening for years,
Yep.
and it really feels like there might be some truth to that because there have been a lot of lies. The aliens is a big one.
Yep.
By the way, the CIA knows where the Ark of the Covenant is. Just so we're clear, they know where it is. They admitted it. Uh, they didn't say where. They just said they know where it is. Uh, they use. Oh, by the way, psychics are real. Remote viewing works.
Yep.
Telepathy works on highly autistic people. Are very telepathic. Uh, that's all real. That's all come out.
Well,
Like that's
Project
all been
Ultron, right?
declassified. Yeah. So these sorts of things keep coming out and they just keep more and more truth keeps coming out
Yep.
about the reality of our world. I wouldn't be surprised if within the next 5 to 10 years it's going to become too much now where it's obvious our history is bullshit. It's not even that it's wrong, it's lies. It's actual misinformation intentionally. One of the biggest
Yeah.
ones we've talked about it before, you just talked about it the other day, is the giants. Why do they keep hiding the giants?
When we
They're
know they're
real?
real, that's not even really a
It's not even a question.
yeah.
It's not even a question. But for
Yeah.
some reason, they still want to pretend. They want to play make believe.
Yeah.
Uh,
It,
they did
it
the same thing with the worldwide flood, but now it's you can't even. There's no
I
debate really. It,
I
it
really
happened.
I really think it comes all back to that meeting they had in the late 60s or early 70s. Can't remember the date, but it was somewhere around there. And they had a meeting. I think it was in Washington, and they brought experts from all over the world. And the meeting's conversation was basically, "Hey, we get a lot of this information, and we're really concerned about how we should go about disclosure."
Yep.
And in that meeting, they had a couple of European science psychologists that said that, well, if you tell the truth, the world will panic and it will all fall apart and we'll have chaos and the stock markets will collapse and yada yada yada. That's what these European scientists said, and the Americans and
European.
all the other leaders like, okay, well, there's that then. No disclosure. That happened.
Another another one is Antarctica. What's going on down there? Why does
Yeah.
every country in the world have a treaty that they're not going to fuck with it?
Well,
Why not?
keep in mind, we had a situation here some years ago where all the world leaders, including the Pope, went
Yeah.
down mysteriously all at the same time down to Antarctica. Why?
Yeah. Very good question.
And keep in mind,
I'd
the
love an
Pope at
answer.
that time was quite sickly.
Yep. But he was summoned
He
to
was.
the South Pole.
And, that's interesting. Um, there's a lot of hidden things from us. And
Yep.
is it some big or like I mentioned that some of the legacy of those people who came might well have come here and molded us in their image, scientifically, to be slaves for them. Because keep in mind, these aren't gods. They were never called gods. That came later, right?
Yep.
What if some of that, or at least a lineage of that, is still about? and their technology, we're talking a long time ago, they were able to make it to Earth. I would assume their technology would progress, right? And all of a
Yeah.
sudden we get a bunch of technology in modern time. It's like they made a decision, well, we need to up production for something, right? So there could be, this is because I should have done a TFT. This is all speculation, but something's going on. But I do love the pyramid situation because now they're stuck.
If I had to guess, this is just a wild speculation because I don't know. But it's interesting that the Bible has a version of it. All these other stories have a version of the angels, the demons, the gods, whatever,
Sure,
meddling with humans, mixing with humans, creating
sure,
monster races and monsters in general.
sure.
By doing so, I have a sneaky suspicion that the giants and the Nephilim, that connection's real, and that's why they don't want it out there. Because unfortunately, the powers that be of this world hate the very conceptualization of God to its core,
Yeah,
and they've done everything they could over the last century to try and kill it as a reality, the concept of God, but they failed. They failed miserably and utterly because something deep in our psyche,
yeah.
something I would say in our soul, cries out for a creator.
It does. And maybe
It just does.
that's some of the stress is the two different sides that are loyal and the disloyal.
Yep,
It could be
yep,
some of that. But do keep in mind that these stories about these people from another planet, they're not
yep.
gods, right? They were they were very religious themselves.
That's right.
Particularly
They
one
had a
sect
god.
of them was super hardcore religious, and they
Yep,
believed in their God. They did have one God above all, and
yep.
they called him the creator of all. And
That's right.
there's even an interesting little story in those Mesopotamian translations that talks about one of these shining ones was having a conversation with another. Right? It was just a conversation,
Mhm.
and they were talking about the religious ramifications of genetically modifying these creatures to create slaves because they had slavery on their planet before. They said, and they had been outlawed. So there was a big argument on whether they should do it, but they were desperate. So they decided oh well, we got to do it. We have no choice. But in that conversation, one of them gave an anecdote to the fact that do remember our ancestor from long, long, long ago who had actually inadvertently had actually met the creator of all. So they
Mm.
actually not only were they highly religious, they were some of them were true believers, right? So that is interesting in itself. Eventually they became we started calling them gods. But isn't it kind of odd that gods have gods? You
The
know?
over god.
Well, yeah, but
Yep.
it's not looked at like that. They were actually quite religious with ceremony and things like that.
Well, it is interesting that a lot of mythologies have that. They have the creator who's above all the
Yeah.
others, but is absent or dead or whatever. Um, that's very interesting that how much mythology functions that way. You have the one source God, which we would just call God in modern parlance, and then you have everything else underneath that being, which is usually male, but not always. Um, I just find that interesting that that theme carries through even from the most ancient of our texts.
Yeah.
This idea that even above the what they would call the gods, there is something higher.
Yeah,
There's something
yeah.
great. And the
It's
Gnostics had a very
interesting.
similar cosmology too.
And you also have the other side because I know a lot of people love Sitchin, and I I read all those books. Those are fun too. But and there's some good information in there, but it's not gospel, guys, right? But there's
Yep.
another group that would fall under the Lloyd Pye group, I would call them, of researchers, and these guys are very scientific, which Sitchin was fairly scientific, but these guys are super scientific because they're all about the genetics, right? And there's many actual geneticists that are part of that group, and they're the ones that did the research on those weird skulls down in South America that they did DNA came back and they're not quite human, right? They did all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that they pointed out is that the human genome is weird because chimpanzees, gorillas, who are supposed to be our near relatives, right,
Mhm.
have two additional chromosomes than we do, right? And that's
Yep.
weird that we would reduce instead of improve.
Yep.
And one of the things they found when testing the DNA in those skulls is they had the same amount of chromosomal count that we do, which okay, that's not big shock. But the argument is this: when you look at our first two chromosomal chains, um, there are two additional chromosomes there. They're just stacked. It's as if someone had done it intentionally
Mhm.
to solve a problem. And their theory is this: these visitors had two chromosomes less than the monkey men they found on the planet, so they needed to create better slaves. Their stories talk about a whole bunch of process of them trying to do it and failing a lot, right?
Mhm.
And in the end, the solution was to use some of their own DNA to mix with our DNA to create us. That was the final solution. And even that took time to get it right. Right? It's not
Mhm.
like these guys were gods that could just snap their fingers, make things happen. That's not the story at all. But what they suggest, this group, these scientist group, what they suggest is that their solution was to stack the DNA, therefore allowing the monkey man DNA to flow, but also to attach their DNA in by stacking it. Therefore, you don't have a miscount on chromosomal connection. And I, it's a theory, but I thought it was pretty cool, and it makes a lot of sense too of how that might well evolve. Did I explain myself clear enough on that?
You did, yes.
Okay, good.
You did.
But I thought it's just a theory. But it's pretty interesting. It sounds feasible, you know. But
Could be. Could be. We don't know. The truth is we don't know. Nobody knows. It's all lies. It's all
yeah,
nonsense. We don't even have a proper timeline of our own history.
not at
It's
all.
all
But
BS.
we are getting some pretty good pushback though, because
It's good.
you have no, it is good because you have a group of people. Yeah, because you could compare it, right? Like you got the flat earthers, right?
Yeah.
And the flat earthers are always mocked, and they always try to use that to mock everything else, right? And the flat earthers have found a uh, a mistake in the math. They have. There is a mistake there. Why is that mistake there? I don't know, but they have found something, and then they went maybe too far because I don't agree that the planet is flat. I think it is what we think it is. But those guys, it's very hard for them to make an argument and to sustain it. However, you have
Yeah.
this other group of people that is growing every day, and I would categorize them as the Tartarians, right?
Yep.
And these are the mud flood guys. These are the architectural comparisons. These guys are the mega autistic power of 4chan, right? Digging through records and photographs. They're growing, and they have an actual argument that's going to be hard to disprove, and that's a good thing. And I, like you're saying, I hope that keeps to grow and grow and grow and grow because um, one of the best arguments that they have is the fact that you have so many of these buildings in America, particularly um, beautiful, beautiful, Romanesque, brickwork, just beautiful,
Mhm.
gorgeous buildings. And if you go back look at the record, it's like a small handful of people built every building in America, which is odd. Most of those
Yes.
gigantic buildings were built in like a year, which is impossible.
Mhm.
Um, you just look at the data, it doesn't flesh out, right?
Right.
And one of the great things we have, and if you are trying to cover up evidence for, I really think it comes down to greed, to be honest with you. But they made a big mistake because see, in the 1840s, photography exploded. people traveling all over the world, taking photographs everywhere by the 50s and of course the 60s. But you had common people would who had, middle class or so, that had some money, owned a camera, right? So we have this absolute deluge of photography coming from the early 1800s, and particularly
Mm.
1840s. We have a lot of photographs, and you can that are done in cities, and you can go stand in the exact same position today as that photograph was done and look at the building that's there, and you'll notice one very interesting point. In the 1840s and early 50s photographs, the buildings would have a date on them of, like, say, 849.
Yep.
But if you look at the modern one, it says 1849. There are thousands of these, by the way. Isn't it interesting that the media doesn't talk about that at all? How do you
Mm.
explain that a photograph from the 1840s shows a building as being as its build date 1,000 years earlier than it states today, right?
Um, Obviously, Chester, magic. I
Magic.
don't. It's pretty obvious the answer to that
But
question.
but I
Magic.
mean that's a very strong point, isn't it? Right? Now we
Yes.
know just from doing the math of various popes and even George Washington, that we've had about 300 years or so added to the calendar that everyone agrees on. Right? Now, some people argue it's longer, but you got a good close. It depends on the person you listen to, but about 300 years are so our calendar's off. So it's not 2025, it's 1725, right?
Right.
And like I said, these things we know. George Washington did it in good faith, what he did. Some of the popes and stuff that changed stuff did it just to make themselves more important, to connect themselves to certain events. They were very small, isolated, but because it flowed across from the Vatican, it flowed to the entirety of Europe. And if you look at the whole world today, everyone is using the modern Gregorian calendar, right?
Yep.
Um, and but they also have their own calendars, right? And you can make some timeline comparisons, and you can, as far as external information, also kind of account for a few centuries of time that doesn't copacetically line up with the rest of the world. But it just because the British Empire and then the Americans, that's why everyone's using the same calendar today. That's why it got so
Yeah.
widespread. But these kind of arguments going in the future, compounded by many other aspects, I hope that we get the floodgates will open because someone's know much closer to the truth than we're being told, without question, right?
Yes. Yes. It's something is being hidden from us. The real question isn't even what, it's why. I
Yes.
get that they're afraid the people will go crazy. Yeah, but they haven't though. We
No.
now know that the JFK assassination plot was heavily influenced by Israel in some way, one shape or form. Most of the redactions from the files were about Israel directly. People didn't lose their shit. We know that the Gulf of Tonkin uh, incident never happened.
No.
They just made it up, and the
Well, they
Vietnam War was a lie.
that's a
Uh,
red flag
yeah,
operation, right?
we know it's pretty obvious that they're lying to us about 9/11. We don't know exactly how, what, where, when, why, or the precise details, but it's pretty clear they're lying about it. And even if it all came out tomorrow, most people, you know what they would do, Chester? They go, "Eh." That would respond, "Eh. Oh
Yeah,
well, what am I
no.
going to do about it?"
I have a feeling. Yeah,
So
because yeah,
all these lies accomplish nothing. Like I just, it's this hubris and this a lot of the so-called elites have this condescension towards normal people as they would call them, and it's simply untrue. The reason why these people exist, the reason why they're normal to begin with, is because they're unaffected largely by the nonsense that goes on around them. They just get up, get to work, and get their lives going. They don't waste time worrying about the things that they can't change, at least not on that scale, because they don't see themselves as someone capable of changing it. The people who do are the ones who eventually become their problem, especially for the powers that be. But by and large, uh, these people are not normal people are not a threat to the system. The fact that the system's so afraid of them is because it's paranoid. The people who are a threat to the system, they're about 3 to 10% of a population at any given time. They're the ones who actually change things,
Yeah,
either for the better or for the worse. That depends on them, but that's just reality throughout all of history. It's ubiquitous throughout all of history in every culture and every country to ever exist. You do not need a majority, you do not even need a plurality. You need a tireless minority that will not stop.
yeah,
That is certain they're correct and will keep fighting even when everything's against them. Um, and that those are the people who change things. Those are the
sure,
ones they're scared of. But the reality is, those people largely already know that the elites are full of shit. They're lying about everything.
sure.
So it's a complete paranoid schizophrenic break by the people who make these decisions to hide this stuff instead of just being honest. So it tells me either they're completely schizo, or the truth is closer to one or the other major religions than they don't want that imbalance to happen because
Yeah,
they can't control it, or they work for the enemy of that religion, whether you want to call it the devil or what have you,
right.
and they don't, he doesn't want this information to get out because puts the big kibosh on his
Well,
plans, you see.
yeah, and that's an interesting thing because the answer to these questions can be across a very broad spectrum. So I
Yes.
guess I would ask you in the chat a question. Do you think there's an actual grand conspiracy behind all this? Or is it just greed? Or is there a little bit of both?
What do I I'm going to answer that with two answers. Hang on. My throat wants to die on me for some reason. What I think it is just human greed.
Yeah.
What I believe it is the work of Satan. I believe the devil, as we call him, Satan, that negative force, that evil, is real.
The
I
demiurge. Yeah.
I believe it exists. I believe I've experienced it, and I believe it has servants in this world who want to keep people from the truth.
Yeah, but is
The
that
truth,
more of
not
the
even the
nature?
individual. Again, not even the individual truth itself. The concept of truth. It exists in the shadow. It exists in the confusion. It exists in the madness. It exists in your inability to discern, right? It's a
Right.
master manipulator and gaslighter, as the devil always is in all of fiction. That's where it gets its power from when you can't seek truth. One of the things that like all of the great religions and the great teachers of those religions, well, maybe besides Muhammad, but that's another point, uh, will tell you, Jesus, Buddha, all of them, seek truth.
Well,
Seek truth. Truth will set you
Muhammad
free.
was Jesus. So
Well, but you know my point.
I do.
The idea is that just the seeking of truth, whether or not you ever get it, the endeavor is noble and worthy. So if
Right.
you can't discern what is true and what is not because everything's a mess, because the devil or whatever you want to call it has made everything a jumble, it makes it real hard for you to,
Right.
as Jesus
Do you
said, set yourself free.
do you see this devil as being an actual, entity, or is it just the
Yeah.
nature of man?
Yes, I think it's an actual entity. I don't think our nature is our own. It's pretty obvious to me that humans are very easy to become of one mind, of one spirit,
Oh yeah,
and I
humans
think
are
the reason
stupid.
yeah, I think the reason that is
No, we
because
definitely
we
are.
have this idea that we're individuals, and we're not. All religions, by the way, tell you this, every single one. In Christianity, you are all cursed to hell, as a block, as a group.
Oh yeah.
When you are born, you're destined for hell.
Yes, the
There
original
is no
sin.
individuality there is no individuality there. The only way you can attain individuality is to turn to God. That's the only way you can have it. Otherwise, you're cursed just like everybody else. It doesn't matter how unique and special you think you are, the curse applies to you too. In other religions, it's the same thing, whether it's the idea of everybody's connected and reincarnation and you can become a bug or blah, 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 blah. It's the same idea that we're all connected through a metaphysical connection. We would call it spirit in English, but others would call it other things in other language. Karma is a good example of it. These are all metaphysical connections. So I do think it's a real entity outside of that. However, I think just as God can and his servants can, this entity can influence that bond. Can influence if you want to use if you want to use something from sci-fi, the force. It can influence that same energy that connects all of consciousness and living things together. Um, and that is why it does what it does. That's why it obfuscates. That's why it hides the truth. That's why it is the deceiver. It doesn't have to deceive you about everything. It just has to get you to where you can't trust your own ability to discern. And it's one. Because now, how are you, even if the truth comes to you, how are you going to recognize it? How are you going to know it? How are
Right.
you going to be able to accept it?
So
But
you're
yes, I do believe I believe it's a real entity, just as I believe God is a real entity. Yes,
I see.
100%.
So you're more
Yep.
Gnostic than you realize.
Yeah, probably. Uh, I believe Jesus Christ is the final and ultimate expression of the divine truth. And that's why you have to accept him and accept the divine truth to basically ascend out of this plane and not be cast into the lower plane of hell, what we would call, what Christians would call hell. Uh, which is where I believe that entity either resides or maybe even comes from. But if you want to take the more Christian interpretation, he was once in the higher plane and was cast out, which would be Lucifer. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know one way or the other. I just know I've experienced true evil. That's the only thing only way I can explain it is that whatever I was in the presence of was
Oh
evil.
no, I've seen it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's for
yeah,
sure. In the face of man. But it is interesting that all these, because we do love conspiracy theories just for the fun of it. But there are some points to it that are a little bit more serious than just fun.
yeah.
And this whole thing with the pyramid and what they found under it, it's got to force some doors open, dude.
They're gonna have some questions to answer.
Yeah, and
We
I
got
kind of,
questions now.
and I
We
don't know
got
how
questions.
long it'll take, but they're gonna have there's gonna have to be some rethinking on stuff
Yeah,
because, like I said, we've all seen our whole life all these documentaries on people's theories on how they built them pyramids. But
yeah,
now we have a structure that makes that look like child's play.
yes. And it literally is. Which is why I was coming to the idea that maybe the pyramids were designed to stop that thing because they're far less
To
sophisticated than
cap it,
whatever
you
that
mean?
thing. Yeah, whatever that thing is down there, they're way less sophisticated than that.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, that is true. But the internal workings, if they had all their gear, would be more sophisticated. I don't know.
maybe, yeah.
All I know is what the ancient stories we have about them say, right?
Yep.
And if you haven't read the Pyramid Wars, they've been translated by several people. Um, Sitchin did a little bit, but I don't think his is necessarily the best. There's people because I think what Sitchin was because I know there's a lot of Sitchinites out there, and like I said, I liked his books. Like I'm sitting right here next to me. But really, what Sitchin did was open the door. Him and Von Doniken and Graham Hancock to a point, they kicked the door open. And there has been a flood of what we're looking at 2 generations now of people who have taken that and run with it
Right.
and expounded upon it, right? And we're getting a lot of interesting things. And the debunkers have a hard time because what they'll do is they'll take one translation word and say, "Ha, you didn't translate this one word right. That means all the other 10,000 words you wrote are wrong."
Right.
It's silly. It's silly and ridiculous. But I do love the fact that in because you guys know I translate the ancient stuff. Is what I studied in school, and I don't get Proto-Samaric very much. But it is a hieroglyphic language, unlike the cuneiform stuff. And and of course we also have Proto-Samaric as well, which is even, more primitive than that. But
Mhm.
there is a word that in Yiddish or excuse me, Hebrew would be translated or spoken as Shem, right? Which, if you read your
Mhm.
Bible, its word shows up quite a bit. But if you look at that word being translated into the Old Sumerian language, it means uh, it basically means the heavenly ship that goes up upon a pillar of fire is how it translates.
Yep.
And that sounds like a rocket just in the translation. But the interesting thing, go look at the Proto Sumeric hieroglyph for the word. It's a rocket, literally a rocket ship. I'm
A
not
rocket ship.
I'm not even kidding you. You can go look it up yourself. You don't have to believe me, right? Shem was the worst stooge. I don't know. I kind of like Shem. But I'm just saying that it's translated in their language as a heavenly ship that goes up upon a column of fire. And if you look at the actual hieroglyphic, it's literally a rocket ship.
Yep.
Should that not mean something? And his name is Shem.
Apparently not.
You're right.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently it's all just coincidence, Jester.
Yeah.
Coincidence. Just like in the all those ancient Indian texts where they have they have literal pictures and depictions of men in rockets flying around.
I know.
Ah,
Well,
ah.
Well, like when you think about like some of the oldest texts we have in regard to Egypt, because people are more interested in Egypt because more of it survives than the Mesopotamia, which is older. Um,
Right.
and of course, Egypt was built later from all the story because they're all connected, right? But when we look at aside from the black Israelites, um, so I don't want to get in that conversation. But who are the people who built Egypt? Well, they're the Shem Shahur, right? So what does
Right.
Shem Shahur translate as? The men of the rocket ships is how you
Yep.
translate that in modern lingo, or the men who ride upon heavenly ships that go up upon a fiery column. The Shem Shahur. They're the people who built Kemet, built Kem. And after the process of building it and bringing the locals, because they even say that there are local peoples, humans, right? That they gathered together, and after they built it up, eventually they gave rulership, kingship, to the people of Kem,
Yep.
and they stepped back and took a back seat, right? But yeah, all these things are starting to come home now. They're all starting to build up, and that discovery underneath the pyramid is wow, dude. That is
Things are
so
changing.
it's so cool, dude. It's so cool.
Things are getting wild out there, folks.
They
They're
are.
getting wild out there.
And keep in mind we've had some other things too, right? We finally had some old wrinkly dude who finally translated the Indus Valley script, and we have thousands of parchment from that
Yep.
we've never been able to read. So that door just opened. The Yovich manuscript, which doesn't mean much to me, is finally being decoded. That's another thing that's happened this year. Tutmos the second's his actual second tomb is being about to be cracked here, probably next this month or next month. Um, and who knows what they're going to find in there? That could be pretty cool. They might cover some of that up though. Van Lake is popping off now. I don't talk much about that because I do have some NDA stuff on that that just from I have friends, right? Just like everybody
Uh-huh.
else. But I can't talk much about what's going on in Van Lake, but I would say that cuneiform, supposedly, is something that came in so many thousands of years ago, 6,000 years, 8,000. It's argued when it came into being. Van Lake is the dating we're coming off of that is 30,000 years. And we have entire underground throne rooms that are covered in cuneiform.
Yep.
Uh oh, that's a problem,
Uh-oh.
right?
That ain't good.
That
That ain't
ain't
what that's
good.
supposed to be.
That
Wait a
ain't
minute.
good.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. So, and of course, they're starting to rethink things because a lot of people have made an assumption that the Younger Dryas event, which was nearly killed all of us, keep in mind, 12,000 years ago, that was the flood, the actual flood of Noah. That's where all the kind of, because it was so viciously bad, North America was torn up real bad, right? And there would have been tsunamis everywhere. However,
Yeah.
we're starting to get more geological information that's connecting with Van Lyck that is suggesting that the 30,000 year ago flooding events, which there were many of, might that might have been the actual flood. That
Interesting.
event, not the Younger Dryas event. It is interesting. I'm telling you though, Van Lyck is going to change history, man. It's going to change history because what Van Lyck shows us is, anytime you can take a historical document, oral history, and connect it scientifically, you got a banger, right?
Right.
Well, you know who Japhet is, right?
I've heard the name. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the sons of one of Noah's children, right?
Right.
um, very famous within the Bible, and not just the Bible, extra territorial stuff, cultural stuff as well. He's heavily named individual. Well, Van Lyck is his. He's the
Right.
king of what we're calling Van Lyck. Um,
Right.
so Japhet, a biblical person that most historians consider to be fantastical, like Noah, was a real guy. So there's a lot going on, and it's going to be a wonderful year. I can't wait to see it, and we will talk about it here. Keep that in mind.
Oh,
And
we'll see it.
we will.
We'll see it.
And I don't have a lot of extra access than you guys do. I have very little. But the thing that I can be useful for is this is my line of study, right? So I do have kind of a catalog of information that can be used to support and or debunk various things that come out. They could be helpful.
Right.
Uh, anyway, let's go ahead and finish off today.
Let's get out of here today, shall we, folks? Shall
Yes,
we end today on a
and
high note?
well, I don't know if it's a high one, but the
Oh, it's a
working
high note.
man did make 30 grand, so they put about 50 million in their pocket. I don't know the budget, but it's not going to be that huge. Maybe 50 million,
Better
maybe
than nothing.
30. So it's a start. It's not gigantic, but it is a start, and I think this movie will have some legs. And even beyond this, it'll go to streaming and it'll make money there too, right?
Just so
So
we're clear, Jason Statham has the best genetics I've ever seen of a white man. You know, he's almost 60 years old.
I know, dude.
He looks
it's
amazing.
He looks great. And good for him, man. I'm happy that he knows what his shtick is and he sticks to it. I like it. But yeah, so this movie's doing okay. If you want to go see a movie in the theater, go check it out. I mean, it looks like a fun because all the reviews on it are, like yeah, it's good. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and check. Um, a working man, IMDb, right?
Yep.
Let's see, because Rotten Tomatoes is just nonsense. 6.2. Yeah, that's about normal for Jason, isn't it? It's kind
Yeah.
of his thing. A little bit above average, good fun. It's not going to be a change the world type of movie. Perfect, right? And I love the Beekeeper. That was a good movie. You see that?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's not bad. Not
Um,
bad at all.
so hopefully this will grow and they'll make more money. And once again, we do have Chuck Dixon connected to this, and well, of course that's wonderful. But Snow White, however, uh, yeah, didn't have the same kind of weekend. They made less.
They made a lot
And
less.
this, what we're looking at, 500-600 million dollars they need to break even. And they're sitting at about 70. So hmm, this is going to
Got
lose a
problems.
lot of money, dude.
Yeah. And they only have themselves to blame.
That's true.
They only have themselves to blame.
This is a big weekend, though, dude. Look at all the new stuff. Let's take a look here. The Chosen,
See what we got.
less separate. Now, you said The Chosen was you were enjoying that.
Yeah, it's really good. I think you'd like it too, Chester.
Yeah.
Um,
Made some money
it's,
too.
so what they do is they put out this apparently they only did 1 and 2 because it's the Last Supper episodes of the season. They do 1, 2, or 3 episodes in the theaters to put it out first. That gives them a little bit of seed money too, and then they also, obviously release it on streaming or whatever. So, that's what they did here, is they put these out, put the first 2 episodes out as a feature
Hmm.
and made a little bit of money here, which is good because
Yeah.
this show is technically the biggest television show I believe ever, as far as how many people have watched it.
Really?
Um, because they distribute it all over the world. They have it in multiple, they've had it translated into basically every language. I mean, it's Jesus. It's the big J man. Everybody wants to watch him.
And it's
So
an honest, faithful interpretation, I'm assuming.
it's pretty good. It's the best
Yeah.
one I've ever seen. We'll put it that way.
Meaning
Uh,
it's not gonna piss the Christians off is my point.
Not typically, no. Some of them have gotten a little bit bent out of shape about certain things here or there, but, that's why there's so many denominations because
Right.
that happens.
Well, like, give me
But,
an
by
example.
and
What is
large,
bent their nose?
one of them was there's a part in one of the synagogues, Jesus almost gets killed a few times during the biblical story.
Sure.
And one of the times is he pisses off the rabbis in this synagogue
Yeah.
because he's doing a reading there, he's teaching there, and he says things that basically imply that he is God.
Right.
And this angers them for blasphemy, and they plan on stoning him. They carry him, they drag him out. They say they're going to stone him, and Jesus basically just like, no, not today. And they all just kind of freeze and stop, and he just walks away. Anyway, uh, before that though, there's a line in there that's not actually in most people's, interpretations of the Bible, and
Yeah.
apparently it's a very Mormon-esque thing where he says somebody asks one of the rabbis asks him something to the effect of, "Who are you to challenge the law of Moses?" And he says, "I am the law of Moses," which isn't something that Jesus actually says in that moment, and that triggered a bunch of people.
Well, but
Um,
he says it effectively many times.
Yes, which just is him just declaring himself God. That's all he's doing.
Yeah.
Uh, but my point is that just things like that, right? Certain things like that have triggered certain Christians here or there. But for the most part, most Christians seem to really like it. Even people who wouldn't consider themselves Christian. I don't consider myself a Christian, at least not the title. They seem to really like it as well, and it's a really good interpretation of the biblical version of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I should check
We're
it out.
getting to the part of Jesus that I really like, where he's finally had enough of the rabbis and the political BS, and he starts calling them out right to their face, and we're gonna get where he turns over the tables and the what have you. The escalation in the story where he's done, he's had enough.
Yeah.
Uh, that's the part of the story that resonates with me because the one of the things that a lot of modern churches do is they focus on the early part of Jesus's ministry where he was much more chill, where
Right.
he's much more the hippie Jesus, as I like to call him. Well, yeah, okay, but there's also the second part, guys, where he's not chill and he's calling these people, the sons of Satan and all sorts of stuff.
Well, he gets
Like he gets
angry.
right in their face. Yeah, he
Yeah.
gets very angry.
Yeah.
Both of these are Jesus, and both of those are acceptable behaviors when you're dealing with evil,
Mhm.
by the way.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
but my point is that's the part of the story that I personally like. I also really like the crucifixion story, even though it's brutal. I think it's just it's beautifully written in all versions of the Bible, and in all the Gospels. Honestly, whoever wrote those did a great job. Um,
Yeah, they
and
for sure.
then obviously the resurrection story is just, is very beautiful. But see, I'm weird. A lot of Christians don't like the more brutal stuff that's in the Bible. That's the stuff that I love. I tell people all the time, you want to read something metal? Read the Bible.
Yeah,
It
oh
don't
yeah,
get much
God,
more
the
metal than
Bible's
this
got a lot
thing.
of metal in it. Yeah.
And
Um,
especially at the end there, Book of Revelation. Woo!
yeah.
Mm, that's
The
some metal
Revelation,
shit.
yeah. But the thing with it is if you read the stories of Jesus or watch them or whatever, uh
Yep.
it's not hard to understand why the Hebrews, especially their hierarchy, were so pissed. I mean, think about it. You got some dude walking around saying, "I'm the son of God, therefore I am
Yeah,
king of the world." I mean, these guys
yeah,
are all bureaucrats. They're all got money connected to everything. You can get why they'd be like, "Who's this guy? What the hell, man?"
yeah. No, they were upset. They got a little salty, a little sideways about it.
They did.
Um, but it's okay because uh Howell Comics over here, he says, "Jesus too, this time it's personal."
That's
Well,
right.
in the book of Revelation, that's what happens.
Oh, yeah, no,
Jesus
absolutely.
too, this time it's personal. Um, and he comes as the conqueror this time, as the
Yep.
king that he was prophesied to be.
Yeah,
Uh,
Revelation gets hard. That is
it's
for sure.
it's my favorite book. I love Revelation. I love all of it. Even the beginning part that a lot of people don't like, where it's the letters to the churches by John the prophet John,
Mhm.
uh, John the Revelator. I love even that because it's just so it's all good. But anyway, this series, The Chosen, I highly recommend it. If you haven't watched it, check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. The first season's a little bit rougher because they had basically no budget. But as the budget starts to pick up, as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it's all self-funded by them. They did have that Angel Studios or whatever it is, Angel
Right,
Films
right,
had bought in for a little while, but there was a big hullabaloo there about distribution and who has the rights to what, da da da. So they cut off from them and are back on their own. So that's why when they do this, where they put this out and they put it out in the theaters to basically recoup some of that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially since
no, that's
people
good.
seem to love it. It's a
Yeah,
nice little event, but I highly
yeah,
recommend it. I'm very excited for season 5. Again, it's we're getting to the climax of the story here. We're at the point of no return now, where he's already done the resurrection of Lazarus, um, at the end of near the end of season 4. We're getting to the meat and potatoes of this story, and I
right.
wanna see how he handles it, because this is where Jesus stops being such a nice guy, and he
Uh,
starts being, a problem, a
I'm
real problem.
I'm assuming that the story starts like in his 30s.
Yeah, yeah. He
Okay.
starts so basically the first because it was originally supposed to be mostly just about the disciples, that's why it's called The Chosen, and for the most part it is. Jesus is just obviously in the story. Uh, but it starts actually focused, if I remember right, the first episode focuses on Peter, because of course, as it should, and Mary Magdalene. The first one that he called was Mary. According to the Gnostics, his wife.
Right.
Um, and there's a really cool scene where he basically pulls her out of a bar and saves her effectively. And it's pretty beautiful scene actually. And then the stuff with Peter is all really really good too. It's the Peter stuff for the most part is much more lighthearted. That's kind of the dynamic they have with Peter, at least at this part. It gets heavier later, but at this point, it's much more of a lighter, like a not lighthearted's not the right word, but it's not quite as heavy as Mary's stuff because Mary Magdalene's story is brutal. It's brutal. Uh, so I highly
So
recommend it.
not
I
Gnostic
highly,
at
highly recommend.
all. Therefore,
No, no,
is
he's
his
not his wife.
relationship with Judas very close or distant?
Well, Judas just came in in the middle or end of season 3. And they've been building a lot closer of a relationship. There's even a scene apparently in 5 where Jesus tries to get through to him because obviously Jesus knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And he basically, as Jesus does, he just gives him the offer. He doesn't try to force it in any way or manipulate him. He just, tells him that it doesn't have to be this way effectively.
Right.
And it's on their actual because they have a YouTube channel. It's on their YouTube channel of this very emotional scene between him and Judas, where Jesus just can't reach him, and it's very obvious he can't reach him.
I see.
Uh,
Because in the
and I think it's an
Gnostics,
interesting
Judas was
take.
his best friend, his confidant, right?
Right, right. They got really close.
Well, no,
Um,
basically in the Gnostics, Jesus, because he's his best friend, asked him to betray him.
right, correct. No, they're not going that route. They're going with
Right.
more of the disgruntled follower route.
Yeah. It's
Which
too bad.
there's a meme out there that's actually really funny where it's where the guy asks, he goes, so what the hell was wrong with Judas? Think about this for a second. He's either the son of God, the Messiah like he says he is, or he's at the very least some high level wizard. Why are you fucking with him?
Right, that's a fair point, which is why the Gnostics are so compelling. But of course,
Yeah,
the Bible completely ignores Jesus' childhood and young adulthood,
for the most
where the
part, yeah. There's a
Gnostics
few
talk about
stories,
it,
but yeah.
his childhood, and of course he went to Egypt and trained, and stuff like that is more complete of his story. But nevertheless, you got the new horror movie from Universal Pictures, made a little bit of money.
A little bit of
Looks like a
money.
ghost story. We got now. This one is interesting to me. This is A24, and as far as B movies go, they're kind of the best at it, right?
Yep.
And this is that Jenna Ortega girl. And it's it says comedy. It shouldn't. It's much more of a horror kind of horror movie. Death of a Unicorn. And it's a weird little idea. If you look, go check out the trailer. It's kind of interesting. And I thought she was hot or something, but clearly not.
Not
Because
quite.
$5 million for, and she's a pretty
Not
big name,
quite.
right?
Eh, that's the problem. A lot of these places keep propping these people up, but they don't ever let them become genuine stars. That's why there's so many of them nobody's ever heard of. Right? You'll mention her, be like, "Who?" Most people are like, "Who?" But you mention Tom Cruise, everybody knows who Tom Cruise is. Or you mention, even Chris Pratt or Jason Statham. A lot of people won't know his name, but they know him as soon as they see him, right? Uh,
Right.
Whereas people like her, granted, okay, yeah, they've had longer careers, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just using an example. People like her, nobody's ever heard of her because she's not really a star. They
Yeah.
just they wanna pretend. They wanna play make believe and pretend like she is. I would
And
say, of the young women, the ones who are the stars that people actually know are Millie Bobby Brown and Zendaya of young actresses.
yeah, and
Um,
a lot of people don't really care for him very much. Um,
Correct.
and this girl is a vapid little shit as well,
Yep,
right? So it's there's not many of them that have any kind of they don't have the glamour of the old Hollywood. I can tell you that. Paul Rudd's in this too, and he
old
is
Paul Rudd.
fairly popular. I don't really recognize anyone else offhand here, um, but it does have.
I recognize, Téa Leoni just because when she was one of my first crushes when I was a young man back in the
Oh,
'90s.
fair, fair.
Yeah.
It's got that Will Poulter. I haven't seen him since that Legion movie. And of course his name is Shepard. I wonder what he does in the movie. Anyway, so on the nose with these idiots, but that really didn't make money. I expected that was going to make a little bit. I mean, we have a re-release of Princess Mononoke, and it made a little bit of money, and you know that's an old film. Let's see, The Penguin Lessons. This didn't do anything. Um, is it a That was a drama. This is hmm. Okay, it sounds stupid. Um, Ballad of Wallace Hills. These movies are not making money, dude. The cinema is dead, dude.
Well, there was a thing going around where this article talking about theaters don't know what to do to attract back audiences, and the sad thing is it's not really the theater's fault. One,
No.
movies are too expensive. They're just too there's no excuse for 12, 14, 15, $20 tickets. Like there's just no excuse for it's just not worth it. And two, the movies suck. They suck. We'll get
Yeah.
one or two good movies a year if we're lucky.
Yeah, I
That's the
think
problem.
I think they should really fall into the format of playing old films, having little film festivals that
Yep.
people can come. If they, I know there's some of these theaters that have become kind of a watch a movie and dining at the same time.
Yep.
I've heard of it. I've never seen one, but that sounds like a good idea. They're going to have to do that. Go back into the vault and show some old films and get people in, like have a noir night or have a sci-fi night or something like that. They're going to have to do a lot more of this, I think, because until Hollywood starts banging again, and which it will eventually, or somebody will. They're kind of in limbo here because these money.
Yep.
But then again, every now and then you'll get a movie that boom, $1 billion, $700 million, right? They
Right.
do pop. So what it tells me is people do want to go see movies,
You're right.
but
The
they're
good
just
ones.
not motivated, right? But then again, when you think about this, and I'll kind of make this my closing comment. When you think about this, when we think about all the arrogance that comes out of a Hollywood star, if you do the math, it actually comes down to if you take a blockbuster billion-dollar movie, right? Still, even with the success of that movie, 99.4% of the planet has no clue who's in the movie or even that the movie exists. 99.4% of the planet. And and it always make because I know this, and it always makes me laugh when I see the just raw arrogance of these celebrities. It's like, yeah, okay, you got some money and you do have some local fans, but most of the planet has no clue who you are, right? You
Yeah,
have to become truly legendary for the world to know who you are. Like Tom Cruise. He is
good old
a much
Tom.
higher percentage, but I guarantee you 70 to 80% of this planet has no freaking clue who Tom Cruise is. That's the truth, right?
Probably,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, because even with
Yeah.
$1 billion, when you look at the cost and the math, it's actually not a lot of people out there watching your movies, dude. Not even in America. Small percentage of people are actually going out and watching, even back in the heyday. So, anyway, hey, Adrian.
Hey, what's up?
I showed your
Yeah,
I showed your Thai Snow White.
nice.
She's cute.
Um, yeah, she's really learning a lot of techniques and stuff on her own. I'm trying to teach her that you need to learn the fundamentals too.
Oh, you talk about your
'Cause that,
daughter. I was talking about
yeah.
the article you put up about the Thai
Oh,
actress who is
the pet.
voicing Snow
Yeah,
White. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about her art.
No,
Yeah, no, that was
although
an interesting
she is getting better, dude.
that I found. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
she
your
is.
daughter.
She's learning from a lot of YouTube videos. Um. I was gonna say, I think there's a factor that we're not talking about when it comes to movies too, and that's that people's attention span has died because of the TikTok generation, that they don't
Yeah,
watch movies. I don't think they watch movies like some
yeah.
people.
My kids don't. Yeah, they're always on YouTube or
Yeah, my kids
Line.
rarely watch films, and if they are watching films, they're not watching films, not like we watch films, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's another factor that people just don't have the attention span for these long movies anymore as well. Like I find it in myself having a hard time watching, like having the
Right.
attention span for that
You're
stuff.
right. Yeah, no, the show times are longer for sure. And of course this happened back in the day, right? In the 70s when they were having the
Oh yeah,
same problem. Hollywood collapsed. And of course they came back later with tight short movies that became legend in the late 70s, early 80s, right?
right.
Um, so I'm assuming something similar will happen again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we live in a very interesting time when it comes to entertainment.
Yeah, that is
I
true.
mean, how close are we to actual AI films? Not sure, because there's still a lot of really big screw ups when it comes to that
Yeah.
stuff.
I
But
imagine a few years out though. We're not that far away.
I'd say we're probably maybe 3 to 5 years out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming. I mean, I've been paying very close attention for the past few years with AI, and
And
where it started and where it is, you know, decades of work, but in a very short
mind-boggling.
time. It is mind-boggling. Yeah. And I'm here for it. I have a lot of people seem to be like, no AI. Why not? What's wrong with that?
I think I have mixed feelings about it for
Well, you
sure.
still need someone to prompt it. You still need someone to craft it and to guide it.
Correct.
So there's
Yeah.
still people involved. It's just tighter, smaller teams, cheaper budgets. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I want to see what someone can craft, and when we're depending on where the technology goes. But you're going to have a probably a small team have to put a good chunk of work in to get a really good movie out of it, though. I'd say,
Oh yeah. At this point, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I do have to go to work. Nice
Jester,
to
you
see
should
you,
go to
though.
work
I should,
finally.
I should.
Holy
God, I'm
crap.
such a lazy bastard.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've been
I
take
have a
us.
new
listening
one
for a
for you,
bit, and
Chester. I have a new
I
one.
just thought I would come in and
No,
give my
thank you,
2 cents
Adrian.
about
You could
the
have come in
attention span.
earlier. You're always welcome.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Go ahead.
Hmm. You ready?
I am.
Wisdom shared is wisdom gained.
Yeah. I prefer pepperoni pizza.
Wisdom.
Namaste. Later, everybody.